Super pushing Florian Labigra right over.
Oh, Chris Oulton, he does make that pass.
Gael Valero doing his best on the outside, gets sideways, and no, the teammates crash. We had the number 11 going right there. 3 wide out there in the middle of the field through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shots of the entire season.
Towards the Mickey Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash.
2 wide now, door to door. Max Verstappen to Vanderdantis. Max Verstappen able to safely rejoin. Slots it right in front of another car.
Carousel immediately, he gets punted off. That was Saavedra. Aguilar, he's gone off, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin, oh no!
Dean, oh Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Oulton does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand, and this is it. Chris Oulton seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Oulton takes it.
Miranda Pedro Zuba into the wall.
It's actually Valero. Valero's actually gone off into the barriers coming up to the cutting.
David Taub making his way back up is already climbed 7 positions.
Oh, Oh, spoke too soon there. Sende goes up.
So right now, this is going to be where it's going to get shaken up. David Toth passes them while they are in the pit through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shows of the entire season.
So we have 3-way battle going to the most dangerous turn of the mountain. Up the mountain, we have contact right there. These guys going absolutely crazy. It's going to come down to the final corner, Murray's corner. Who is going to have to lead? We may have a drag race to the finish line on our hands, folks. You see David Toth right now going into the pit lane.
We go racing for heat number 1 here in Austria. From AMX 20 in towards the Niki Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash. That's a huge lunge from Gaston Calabi, and he's made contact with, I believe, oh wow, it's a chaotic moment here. And slipstream in front for either car, and you can just see Petrushova pushing Florian Lamigra right over.
Here we go then, Valeri, he looks left, he looks right, he's going through the right hand side, which is the inside going into turn 3.
Here it is. This is the crucial moment in this race. It's looking like it's only going one way. David Toth is going to take the race lead. Heading into the second half of the season, the Hungarian of David Toth has driven a masterclass here with the early pit stop. Not the ideal strategy, but an ideal race winner and an excellent performance.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. We just got back from our mid-season break, now into week 7 of season 60 AMX simracing World Championship, where we're headed back to the United Kingdom today, out to the lovely Oulton Park in the GR86s. Again, a huge welcome from everyone out here at AMX. I am Kevin Garcia alongside in the booth today. We also have Amir. A little bit of a break for a lot of our drivers. I'm sure they're refreshed, ready to come back out here and prove what they got the rest of this season.
Absolutely. And the fact that for the drivers as well to come back after this, to switch on the racing brain after just a short break, yes, it is going to be a bit jarring, but for some guys who have been on it from the word go, I think it was just a bit of a minor inconvenience for them. But glad to be here and back for the commentary, Kevin.
Absolutely. And for everyone out there watching at home, feel free to follow along. We got plenty going on the rest of this season. But for right now, we have a few things to go over before we get into today's race. We've been out here since September 7th this season, and we're going all the way through November 17th. With this season's prize pool of $11,000 plus next level racing gear, today's race format goes as following for AMX ZERO. We got our 15-minute qualifier, followed by that top 15 reverse grid, going into heat number 1 of 20 minutes, followed by a second top 15 reverse grid into that final heat number 2 of 20 minutes. For everyone out there on track, driver cams are required. You can get the link via the AMX Discord or on our website. Payouts are done in balances over $100 every single month. So once you hit that $100 threshold, expect that money to hit your account. Race days are every single Saturday and Sunday this weekend. And like I mentioned, you can get signed up to join anytime at amxrace.com, as well as get all of the info for the rest of the season. We're here every single weekend this season, starting with AMX ZERO on Saturdays at 5:50 p.m. GMT, followed by AMX 5 shortly after at 7:10. This season we got every other weekend on Sundays, something going on different. We got AMX 10, our double headers of the AMX World Tour with our TCR cars starting at 5:50 p.m. with the second race right after at 7:20 p.m. followed by AMX 15 on the opposite weekends at 5:50 p.m. A bit more of an endurance race for that one. So like we mentioned already, back at Oulton Park today in the GR86, Amir, I have a feeling this is going to be a good one today.
Oh, absolutely. It might be an absolute belter here, Kevin. Because, again, Oulton Park, it needs no introduction among us who have raced in the AMX world because it is a small circuit located out in Cheshire, Little Birdwolf, opened first in 1983. Not much has changed in terms of its layout and its scenery, but the 4.3 kilometers that we're going to travel here today is on the Foster circuit, and it will be much faster than some drivers will be anticipating. Rather than going through the Grand Prix layout past the lake into Shell, we're going to go straight up through the chicane, bypassing it in fact, all the way back through to the final sector. So it's going to be fast, it's going to be frenetic, and the car of choice here today, Kevin, for this first for these first two heats is going to be really complementary to the circuit. And here is the car in question, the Toyota GR86 rear-wheel drive. Just a little under 230 horses, 1.3 tons, and crucially for the drivers, no need to take your hands off the wheel to just shift through the gears. It is a flappy pedal gearbox. In fact, it's not flappy pedal per se, but it is almost like the same concept where you can just pull through the gears on the stick, but you don't have to worry about heel and towing or clutching in the gears. You can just go full pelt on this car, and with the small nature of the circuit, it does complement well with the car here at hand, Kevin.
Definitely, and one thing for all of our drivers, like you mentioned, Amir, a little bit of a different layout today. So we're not going to be seeing the chicanes. We're not going to be seeing the long U-turn out after turn 3. So once we hit Cascades, instead of taking a left-hander, we're going to be taking a right into Foster's, which is given this layout's name. So we are running the Foster's layout today, and as now we check in on our drivers in qualifying. So far, a few of these guys we've seen pretty much all season long, whether it be in AMX 5, AMX ZERO, pretty much any of the races. There's quite a few drivers. Good to see another driver out here, Josh Perween. Haven't seen him as much as I think he'd like to be out here, but that's one of the hard things about living in Australia. I think right now it's pretty much in the middle of the morning. So again, a lot of our fan favorites out here right now riding on board with Avandro Dantas. So a lot of these guys, again, 15-minute qualifiers, still trying to set in, get used to the slightly different layout that might not really be run as much in iRacing as the full international layout.
Certainly. And apart from the 4.3 kilometers as on international circuit, this is actually half that, 2.6 kilometers, where again, we bypass the whole island section from Shell, where the lake's on the side. We just literally straight up back into the forest section here in Cheshire, back onto the start-finish straight. And you're right to point out about Josh Owen. We haven't seen much of him of late because he is, again, same time zone as where I am right now. Well, I'm in Malaysia, he's in Australia, but from where he is in Perth, it is about the same time zone. And also he has to contend with being in a married life now, so probably not as sim racing as often, but still great to see him back.
Yeah, and it's always great to see a lot of these guys that have been around a while. I mean, seeing that we're already into season 6 of this thing, just time does fly by super quick. But speaking of right now, time flying by, we're almost halfway through, not quite halfway through this qualifying session. So far it's looking like Jackson SNJ sitting up top, Josh Perween in second, Miguel Araujo in third, but right now still Avandro Dantas, one of those, again, I'm really sure these guys, they're used to Oulton Park. This track is ran so many different cars, so many different races, but again, just a little bit different configuration is going to really put, in my opinion, I think there's going to be a lot more door-to-door racing out here. Of course, AMX ZERO, you can always expect a lot of door-to-door racing as well. From what we've seen the last few weeks, right before we had our mid-season break, I know we had Eduardo Barrichello out here, and he pretty much seemed to be taking most of the races. So unfortunate not to see him or any of the members out here. Of course, the Barrichello name definitely running strong with him as well as the rest of the family. But for today, it's still going to be a lot of the Brazilians from the Delinte Esports, like Jackson Assange still sitting up top. Here we go, Evandro Dantas, another Brazilian, now hitting the pit lane. Still not quite happy with how things are going out there. Again, these drivers don't have to worry much about sets out here as everyone is running the same set. But you can see there, I'm not sure if a little bit frustration or a little bit just, hey, I need to get in the zone and get back out there and set some faster laps.
I think that was the wheel probably coming to a stop. His dampening might have been a bit set too high there. But yes, Dudu Barrichello, as he's known as well. Eduardo, really nice to see that a driver that's coming up through the F1 feeder series ladder is making his way through AMX as well. And gotta think of it, taking a duck to water, so maybe he can show his old man a thing or two how to drive here, especially given the fact that Rubens is also still quite competitive for his age, and one time recently champion in the Brazilian Stock Car Series. So great to see that a lot of Brazilian talent is coming through, even from the real world luminaries such as the Barrichello family. Meanwhile, Poco Prata said that Delinte won Petit Le Mans last week, which is one of the grand marquee blue ribbon events in iRacing. Great to see that they have not let their foot off the gas despite us being away for a week or two.
Yeah, and speaking of that, that was a great event all around. I mean, from watching the Petit Le Mans in real life on TV to even just seeing the iRacing, I got to compete in that as well with the team. It's probably one of the hardest yet most rewarding endurance races that is on the IMSA schedule. I mean, there's a reason that IMSA uses that as the championship, the finale, to really see who comes out on top. I mean, kind of to the likes of the Bathurst 1000. I mean, just super long race, really just the peak of endurance racing going on out there. So yeah, huge shout out to the Delinte Esports. I got to see the final stint out there. Bruno De Carmo going up against Basic Ollie. So a lot of people know Basic Ollie out there as well. Pretty well known iRacing YouTuber. So like I said, we love to see these guys, especially whenever we see everyone out here. I mean, we're used to seeing the Delinte guys, what they can do day in and day out, but it's great to see everyone out here in the MX series going back out into some of these endurance races. Of course, we got plenty of other people as well showing up. We always have a lot, whether it be Team Redline, Drago, Apex Racing, plenty of guys out there last weekend that I got to see, get to cheer on a bit. But right now we are just over 10 minutes in this 15-minute qualifying session. Right now, kind of following, speaking of the Delinte Esports guys, right there kind of in the middle of the pack, Bruno De Carmo currently sitting in 5th place. However, a lot of these guys, Amir, still pretty close altogether, their lap times.
Yeah, again, it's just a testament, isn't it, that how slow cars provide really good close racing, and in qualifying as well, some really close lap times. First, all the way to where Dantas is right now, about 0.3 of a second. It is absolutely insane, and there's money on the line as well to be won here. So whoever gets the fastest time in qualifying gets about $5 here. So Hero and Cenas right now 200,000 ahead of Resende, with Josh Bowen in 3rd, just 900s behind. But here's the thing, we saw just now that the Delinte guys are running ducks in a row. In fact, 4 of them together. We're looking at Santiago Barrios is right at the back of the field right now, but you saw just now those 4 black cars running together in a row. They're trying to slipstream each other, even though there's not much opportunity to get any slipstream here. It looks as though they're trying to work on something between the 4 Brazilians.
Yeah, and I mean, in these cars too, again, with the GR86 Cup cards, there's not too much done to these cars outside of course, having that sequential gearbox, maybe a few things here and there. But as far as they go compared to a stock GR86, there's not really too much big differences in terms of power, how they handle. So like I said, very close to the street car out there. And seeing that a lot of these guys now, they're coming around some of these super fast corners, hopping up on 2 wheels. But just like that, Bruno De Carmo now coming across the line, a 1 minute 5 second 0.951. So Bruno De Carmo up into 1st place and the first driver to get below that 1 minute 6 second mark.
And amazingly, he is the guy that's leading the entire slipstream train. So how on earth he found the time, we'll never know. But it's, of course, again, testament to the driving talent that he has in his locker to prove how fast he can go. 2 tenths faster than Encinas now, and it looks as though he might be plateauing this time around because drivers behind him are benefiting, including the likes of Jackson Resende inside that train of 4 Delinte cars, the Delinte Express.
Yeah, and another driver that I'm seeing out here, great to see him back as well. That'd be Simone Seminara. So we got to see him in previous seasons out there, of course, taking home, just absolutely dominating Amir. Anytime we get to see him out in a Assetto Corsa Competizione, Simone Seminara, just an absolute beast out there. So it's great to see him now coming into iRacing. We got to see him a couple of times in AMX ZERO. So definitely gonna be one to keep an eye on, especially in these cars. These cars are definitely momentum cars. And now, speaking of people getting faster, Josh Perween now taking that top spot from Bruno De Carmo so far in qualifying. So we have just under 2 minutes left out here in qualifying. Now Josh Perween sitting in that top spot. The Delinte guys resetting back to the pits, getting out there trying to reclaim it.
Oh, that might be cutting it very close though, because all of the, apart from Evandro Dantas, the rest of the Delinte team decided to just go back to pit lane. They thought it's better to just try to reset, but I don't think they'll have enough time to get back across and set another lap. Or maybe they do, but it'll be just within a window of about 10 seconds when they cross the line again to start another lap and finish it in between. Meanwhile, Josh Bowen, he's not in a slipstream train. He is on his own, but it looks as though he might be just a bit under from his previous time, a 105.926. The only other driver to be in the 105 across the line he goes. And yep, he didn't improve that time, so that's the end of his qualifying.
So just like that, we're going to head it back to the Delinte guys right now. Jackson Asenge as well, currently sitting in third place as we see one of the guys just going off track, barreling through that right-hander. So here we go, Jackson Asenge again, right now still on his out lap. A lot of these guys have pit. All of your top 5 drivers are pretty much going to be sitting where they're at right now. Let's see if Jackson Asenge might have enough time. Again, most of the Delinte guys just hit the pits, and the out lap does not count out here. Again, out lap, usually tires not quite warm enough to get back up on there, especially when you completely reset to the pits, kind of get your bearings again and go. But here we see he has about 30 seconds left in qualifying, so I don't think Jackson Asenge will be able to set another qualifying time. He's just trying to get out there, maybe a couple of turns that he's not quite as comfortable as he wants to be, just getting as much practice all the way down to the line. So we see that still. Miguel Araujo, Simone Seminara, Evandro Dantas, Santiago Barrios. So a little bit smaller of a grid out here today, but like we said, Amir, these guys having really close lap times all throughout the grid.
Oh, definitely. And Perwin being the fastest of the lot by only 300 shows that it is very competitive here. From him all the way to Barrios. We can't wait to see how that goes. So we're going to flip the script on its head, and it will be Barrios on pole. So let's see how he can fend off 8 fast charging guys right behind him. But for now, the man of the moment in qualifying, Josh Perwin, will be happy with the $5, but he's going to have to work his way through here. Here's the qualifying results, Kevin.
Yeah, so Josh Perween, of course, able to set that fastest lap time in qualifying, followed right behind from Bruno De Carmo, who had set it only to get overtaken. So still great times, though. Anyone under the 1:06 mark out here today, I feel like are going to do excellent in today's races. Third place, we got Jackson Asenge. Fourth, Felipe Petronev. Fifth place, Hero Encinas. Sixth, Miguel Araujo. Seventh place, we got Simone Seminara. Eighth, Evandro Dantas. Ninth, Santiago Barrios. So yeah, Amir, I mean, like I said, a bit of a smaller grid today. Do you have any predictions to what we're going to see out here in heat number 1?
It's going to be Josh versus the Delinte Tony Canan guys for sure. It is going to be him and those 4 drivers in that particular team. But for the other guys, the outliers, we might just see 1 or 2 spring a surprise. So don't count out Seminara or Dantas to try and make a race out of this.
Absolutely, and for everyone out there watching this on Twitch or YouTube, you can get yourself entered into AMX ZERO by heading over to amxrace.com. Like we said, we have a few weeks left in this season. It's a perfect place to go in there. No entry fee for AMX ZERO. Everyone is welcome. Right now we have, it looks like just maybe a couple more cars getting ready to grid as we are moments away from the green flag.
Green flag, green flag.
And green flag waves away. We're going to get underway here. Look at that. Someone's punching through the middle. It looks like, I think that is Hero Encinas. And Encinas cuts his way out to the front. That's a really fast start from Gerardo. Gets by Santiago Barrios, his fellow countryman. It's an Argentine 1-2 with Seminara in the all-Italian frequently in third place. Behind him is one of the lead takeouts, but no, there goes the Seminara, gets knocked off.
Just unfortunate for him like that. Like you said, amazing start from Edo Encinas. I mean, that seems to be a lot of these cars out here. Anytime we see these guys go from a standing start, really that can make or break some of these guys' races from a lap number one. So unfortunately, Seminara getting pushed out just a little bit. Not sure if these guys not thinking how much space they have. As we can see already, the door-to-door action there going on. That Santiago Barrios there in the middle, and another spin out in the middle of the track, looking like two drivers simultaneously getting spun out. So we knew there was going to be door-to-door action from the very get-go, but there's already been a couple of different incidents now, leading Edo Encinas, Jackson Asenche to start leading away, as well as Josh Perween now trying to fight off Santiago Barrios. So first lap complete, Amir, and we have chaos going on in the midfield.
Oh, that's really unfortunate for Spetrenev and Araujo. That's one delay and take out of the way, at least for Josh to deal with, but one in front and a couple more behind. Dantas and Nicarmo managed to avoid some of the carnage that happened in that first couple of corners, but out in front, Gerardo Encinas, with a start of dreams, he really rocketed like a hare and got up to the front. Meanwhile, this is what happened to Spetrenev and Araujo that caused them to be right at the back. Look at the avoidance that Seminara had to do to avoid being collected there as well. He had to take to the grass. Sorry, that was probably Araujo going around there, but whatever it is, this is still wheel-to-wheel action all the way through the grid.
Yeah, looking back at that, it looked like someone had just gotten a bit unsettled hitting that inside curbing, and just enough whenever they're that close together to really just bump into the next driver, and from there on it was a chain reaction. But right here we just got to see Evandro Dantas just do a great overtake in that same spot. So that is definitely an overtaking position, but depending on how close you are to the other drivers, how hard they're going to be defending, that might make it just difficult. And like we've seen on lap number one, unfortunately spinning some of these drivers out. So now Lipas Petrenev now on the previous lap, he's going to have a lot of work to do, but luckily he is going to make that top 15 reverse grid out here, as well as all the drivers. And ooh, just like that, Santiago Barrios spinning out, going into the tire barrier.
Oh, that tire barrier looked like it was pretty hard to navigate around, and unfortunately he's found it. Unfortunately for him, he's going to be sent all the way to the back. Despite a promising grid position where he was at the front, now he will end up right near where Spetrenev is, but Spetrenev is about at least a lap behind, because you can see the blue indicator. It means that he has already been lapped by Gerardo Encinas. Meanwhile, in the battle for the lead, Encinas has been reeled in by both Jackson Resende and Josh Perwin. So let's see if these two can give Encinas a good race here. We were anticipating it to be very close. I didn't single out Encinas during qualifying, but he was only a 10th behind Perwin's time, so we know he's fast. But in this race pace, at least for now, he is being caught.
And as you can see there, yeah, Encinas just taking advantage of trying to get ahead early on. Again, out here, we have 18 laps in each heat going on for this race. So as short as the track is, these guys still putting in the work. And there we can see Santiago Barrios. Just what happened? Ooh, took that curbing a little too hard. And there we see the spin out going into the barrier. So that's one thing out here, Oulton Park. These cars, they can usually take a bit of a curbing, but on some of these places out here, definitely don't want to see. I think that's already 2 incidents that we've seen on camera just from these drivers taking that barrier a little, the inside curbing just a little bit too hard and unsettling the car just enough to get spun around. So Foster's Corner definitely one to be watching out for, as these drivers have found out the hard way. Right there, Jackson Asenche now closing the gap onto Edo Encinas. So Encinas going to really have to be extremely defensive, because he knows that he has one of the best drivers in AMX right on his tail as well. Encinas, like we said, a lot of this is going to come down to how comfortable can these guys get in these cars, how quick are they able to keep up the pace.
Yeah, these cars are quite highly sprung, you know. They inherit some of the features from the road cars, so very stiff suspension as opposed to just trying to make it a bit soft. As here we go, that is Encinas under pressure from Resende. He tries one on the inside, and Encinas nearly pushes Resende onto the very curb that spun out Santiago Barrios. But you do not want to touch the curb. We saw in qualifying as well, a couple of drivers take to the air, including the likes of Bruno De Carmo when he was going for a fast one. These cars, they can take the curves, but if it's too much, it might just launch him up into the air, so they have to watch that out. And oh no, the grass! The grass catches up Resende, and there he goes into the barriers. He was pushed out a bit by Encinas, and Encinas spins around Josh Berwick. It's all hitting each other.
That's definitely one we're going to have to catch a replay of just to see. I mean, the domino effect once again. This is a bit of a tighter course out here. So like we said, it suits these cars well. But whoa, what is going on there from Seminara? It looks like he almost lost a wheel or something when he went into that right-hander. His front bumper was just going into the ground.
That's a puncture on the front left for Seminara. He's gone off into the final corner there at what's it called again? It's Lodge corner. So into Lodge he goes. Tires, Tree was on his way again, and he's going to have to come into the pits for sure. Dantas and Encinas did, but it looks though Seminara has not. He might have actually ended up into the kitty litter, so that's why he's actually missed the pit lane. But whatever it is, that was some hair-raising moments in that one lap alone. And through all of that, Resende is still somehow in second place in this particular battle. We're going to get a full screen replay for sure.
So looking at the full screen replay, here we go. And it looks like right there, the battle for first place. Just a little bit of contact going in. Jackson essentially trying to take the outside line. But as we've seen already time and time again, both cars getting spun out. Unfortunately, all of your top three drivers getting kind of caught up in that, everyone spinning around. And here comes the traffic, not slowing down in time, trying to avoid it. But like we said, just unfortunately, these guys, they can try to avoid him on a tight track like this. Ooh, as we see there, man, just that could have been worse. It doesn't. I mean, it was pretty bad, but seeing how many drivers barely squeeze their way through that, that could have ended up almost the entire field getting taken out. But after that incident, right now, Bruno De Carmo leading the pack, followed by Jackson SNJ.
Yeah, amazingly, out of all that, De Carmo, he managed to avoid every single bit of carnage to come through up to the front. So he's made good that he, despite not starting anywhere near the front, either in reverse grid or qualifying, he's still able to just push his way up to the front. And that's exactly, in fact, he was in P8 when we started. He was P2 in qualifying, but still, he managed to just avoid everything, and now he's up in front.
Yeah, just like that. Like we said, anything can happen. We say that every single weekend. But, I mean, you expect it on tracks like Bathurst, where the mountain can take you out there at Mount Panorama. You don't expect the track to be taking people out here on Oulton Park. Just like we said, so many drivers drive this course every single week or every other week. I mean, it's very popular track out here. So I think, again, it's just kind of underestimating how much space is there really out here between you and the guy next to you. But nonetheless, still Bruno De Carmo, you know, he's I'm sure not too happy to see your own teammates kind of being taken out. Whoa, just like that, he almost takes himself out, as again, going out there, seeing how just aggressive you have to be to stay in the lead. But again, it's finding that fine line between pushing the car and pushing it too far. Some of these guys learning the lesson the hard way. Bruno De Carmo now almost a 2-second gap, but Jackson Senji is slowly catching up to him.
Yeah, and the fact that De Carmo was pushing his luck there, he did that in qualifying. We saw it a couple of times that the car that he hits the curb, caught a bit of air, luckily not completely turning it over, though he is tempting fate with the amount of times that he has to push it to get the lap time here. Up in front, he's about 1.7 seconds ahead of Resende, with Araujo, who was caught up in that early skirmish, now up in P3, with Perwin not that far away as well in P4. So anything can still happen here, because the way that the circuit is made with the curves, we might still see some stuff changing. As you can see, some comments coming through on Twitch and on YouTube. Hello to Just Keith and the rest of the new contributors as well. There's been a lot of activity on the chat since I've been away for a while.
Oh yeah, definitely. Love seeing everyone that comes in here week in, week out. Huge shout out to everyone out there in chat. We love seeing you guys in here. Right now, so we are about halfway through on lap number 9 of 18 out here. It's still Bruno De Carmo first place, Jackson Asenge second, Miguel Araujo in third. The drivers have spread out just a little bit now, so there's a little bit of gap going on. Again, I think it was a pretty close race up until we had some of those incidents a few laps back that took out nearly half the field. So right now, again, I think, of course, having the two deleted drivers up front, they're going to try to work together to make that gap even bigger between themselves and Araujo. Josh Perween a little bit further behind in fourth place as well. So like we said, right now, I think the drivers are just kind of letting go, kind of settling in, just saying, all right, I have no pressure other than to just not wreck at this point, because I think that's been the biggest contributor for how this race has gone out here so far in heat number 1.
Well, apart from wrecking themselves, they also wreck each other. That's what exactly we saw between Encinas and the really unfortunate that time Jackson Resende. But through all of that, Resende has actually managed to recover through to get back up to second place and chasing his teammate Bruno Carmo. So this is going to be a straight fight between the two Brazilians. Who's going to be the winner of this? I wouldn't want to bet on that. And certainly somebody below us in the comment section has put 90 odds on it. So hopefully you won't lose that money or burn it completely if the bet goes all right.
Yeah, and back in qualifying, I mean, Bruno De Carmo was just slightly faster than Jackson Senji. So, I mean, the two teammates out here pretty comparable in as far as just pure lap time. So right now, I think that's really what they're trying to do. Again, what we're starting to see so far the last couple of laps, Jackson Senji, there was nearly a 2-second gap that he's been closing down already now under 1 second. So I think Jackson Senji just feeling a little bit more comfortable. Again, both of these guys out here, pretty much everyone on the Delete the Esports team. We got to see Tony Kanaan. They do have their own GR86 Cup car competition going on, so I know these guys have plenty of practice, and that's helping them out immensely right now. Josh Perween, we can still see a little bit of damage to his car still from what happened early on. You see right there on the left side of the car, just all of that damage, but he's still nonetheless able to stay out there in 4th place. So right in the middle of the pack, Josh Perween a little bit in no man's land right now.
Yeah, you can see the battle scars on the side of his car. You can tell which part of it was whacked the most when he was sent sideways when Encinas was right in his path. And unfortunately, Encinas' front right panel caught the rear right of Bowen, sent him spinning, and then the rest of the field just plowed into him when the incidents just kept coming. Though, mercifully for him, the car is still relatively in one piece, even if it's a bit dent in. But 4th, I think, is the best he could manage at this point, because again, Araujo in front is just slightly faster than him in lap time. You can see that 4/10 of a second that time around.
And one thing that I don't think usually gets followed too much for AMX ZERO as in terms of where these guys sit in points, because right now, if you can go over to the website, you can see where we were at right before the halfway break. A lot of these guys, especially Dudu Barrichello, coming in here and just being absolutely dominant. He still may have a chance at the overall championship for AMX ZERO if he finishes out the rest of the season. Right now, it is Bruno De Carmo in the lead out of everyone out there, as well as Ralph Benitez in 3rd place. But we can see right there in the bottom right, a great onboard replay of what happened earlier with Josh Perween when he got into that incident. He tried to just kind of avoid it the best he could, but how close he was behind those two drivers in front of him, there was really nowhere to go. And like we've seen, unfortunately, just spinning out, couldn't do anything. He was a passenger, and then here comes the rest of the traffic trying to make sure that he rejoins safely, not to get taken out once again. So right now, though, lap number 13, it is Bruno De Carmo 1st place, Jackson Senji 2nd, and Miguel Araujo in 3rd.
Yep, Bowen though still 0.5 of a second each lap slower, and that snowballed to about a second in just a couple of laps that it has preceded. So Bowen is not going to be a factor in the fight of this podium. Araujo as well, likewise, can be said. Despite this time around being slightly faster than the Carmo, I don't think he'll make any inroads here in the final 6 laps that we have, 5 laps after this, to settle this first heat that has seen quite a lot, despite the relatively short nature of this circuit in this particular layout. But with these cars, it has provided tons of it, and it's still not over yet.
Absolutely. So here we can see Jackson Senji now right behind his teammate Bruno De Carmo. So again, I'm sure that these guys will want to work together, but what we've seen in other competitions as well, I know some of these guys been doing some of these pro competitions out for iRacing. So although they're teammates, they definitely will not hold anything back when it comes down to that final lap. So no team orders out here for Delete there. And we can see a picture-in-picture replay right there. Simone Seminaro, exactly what happened. Man, just seen again, like you mentioned, Amir, it looks like he may have just had a puncture on that front left wheel, had absolutely no grip, and that sent him right into the barrier.
Yeah, and just as he was trying to pass Encinas as well onto his right, unfortunate that the legacy of the impact that he had, the multiple impacts that he had with other drivers at this very corner last time out, coming through Druids on the way to the back straight. It was absolutely manic, and if anything was to go by what happened in this first heat, we might just see the same in the second heat. As you can see, Reshende, how much he's pushing. He literally went on the grass at Druids. He wouldn't want to do that way too often, as he still probably has memories of what happened between him and Cena's at the very beginning of this race.
Yeah, one bad thing that happens from that, you get sent to the back of the grid, but like we said, reverse grid going into heat number 2. That's going to really leave room for Seminaro, Santiago Barrios, those guys to really try to redeem themselves out here. Again, Santiago Barrios didn't have the best qualifying, was able to get up in towards the front of the pack pretty early on, held his own, and then unfortunately got into some of those incidents as well. So again, Amir, I think that's going to be the theme of the day. Not just in AMX ZERO, but we do have AMX 5 coming up right after. So a lot of F1 fans are going to be great to see that, especially a lot of Mercedes fans. We're going to be heading it over to the Circuit of the Americas after AMX ZERO. We got AMX 5 out in the F1 cars. Amir, I mean, I'm not going to make any predictions yet for that one, other than I expect there to be some turn 1 drama.
Wow, if anything, what we saw at the US Grand Prix at COTA last time, that was quite a manic start between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. We might just see the exact same thing here happening just a week later, so we'll wait and see. I'm not going to put any bets on that. We don't know who's going to be driving yet, but if it's the same sort of frenetic nature that we saw in this AMX ZERO race, I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Absolutely, especially when it comes to some of those turns that we got to see. A lot of these guys may be hitting those track limits. We'll have to wait and see, like I said. But again, everyone will be driving pretty much the exact same car coming up AMX 5. We got to see them in the super formulas. A lot of these guys really shined out there, showing their single-seater experience. So we'll see if they're able to come back. I know it seems like there's already a few guys practicing for that weren't able to make it out here for AMX ZERO, trying to just focus on AMX 5. One of those guys being Guy Albolero, pretty much all season said, all right, I'd love to do AMX ZERO, but I'd rather much prefer doing AMX 5. Focus on that, a little bit more payouts, a little bit better. And of course, that's one of the big reasons that Guy Alba, focusing on some of these higher payout races, is still the overall points leader in AMX, as well as he was the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and we still can crack a joke about the fact that he's got so much next level gear in his place, he might just become a reseller in France if that was the case, or maybe an official agent for Next Level Racing over there. Who knows? Either way, we'll wait and see if he's going to turn up later after this. Meanwhile, that was Seminara. We can no doubt that the Italian livery was quite a standout. Spetronev, who was involved in those earlier skirmishes, sad to see him all the way at the back, near the back, but he will be lining up in third when we flip the script, so he'll be bullish about his chances in that second heat. But up in front, there's no such trouble for this. We're going to go through the drivers at the back to the front. Here's Gerardo Encinas, who had an absolutely blinding start to get Gerardo Encinas. He had a very good start to this race. Unfortunately, it fizzled out because of that big accident in the first couple of laps where he was involved in a little major pileup. Meanwhile, back up to the front now. On to the last lap here for Bruno De Carmo, who's managed to stave off the attack of Jackson Resende.
Definitely so. We got the white flag out here for heat number 1. Bruno De Carmo still doing an amazing job. Again, he did great in qualifying, able to get in second place just behind Josh Perween. Unfortunately, the battle that we were hoping between those 2 drivers ended very early on with Perween getting into an incident. Bruno De Carmo able to squeak through traffic. And now, speaking of squeaking through traffic, Bruno De Carmo is going to have to make his way through that lap traffic. But he's not really too worried. Again, like we said, he has his teammate Jackson Sanjay still almost 3 seconds behind him in second place, so no pressure at all. I know he is really going to be feeling relieved. Now he's going to have to focus on heat number 2. Going to be setting all the way from the back of the grid, having to fight his way back. He's had a bit of bad luck this season so far, but today, Bruno De Carmo really ending that bad luck streak, able to come out in P number 1. Just a few turns left out here between him and the checkered flag, able to become victorious. Let's see. Here comes Bruno De Carmo now across the checkered flag. just a sigh of relief as now himself, his teammate Jackson Asenge coming across in second place, Miguel Araujo there in third.
Yep, that will be a sigh of relief for him, and he's finally gotten a handle over some of the other Brazilians that he has had to fight with, including there Jackson Asenge across the line in second place. Now, in fact, that's Josh Bowen crossing fourth. Araujo, despite his early woes, manages to recover all the way up to third. Then Bowen and Dantas cross the line in P5. We're waiting for the rest of the field to come through now. There's Encinas involved in the earlier skirmishes and a brilliant start. He'll be looking to replicate that in the second heat. Across the line he goes 6th. 7th is Spetronev there. In fact, that's Seminara across the line. There's Spetronev in P7, and Barrios will be the last of the finishers to cross the line. But celebrations for the Brazilians. Bora, let's go for Bruno De Carmo, who's up in first place, and no doubt will be a very happy chappy here. But he knows that the same type of work he has to do for race number 2 is still on the cards.
And just like that, folks, heat number 1 comes to an end. Again, big congratulations to the man of the hour so far, Bruno De Carmo, able to take advantage of the chaos in front of him, able to avoid it. Like we said, make his way from nearly the very back of the pack all the way up into first place and putting Delinta Esports up on the podium. So we're going to have to see if he can do it again. But there we have it, the Heat 1 results. Your BenQ session winner, Bruno De Carmo, out on the top, followed by his teammate Jackson Asenge in second place. Third place, Miguel Araujo. Fourth, Josh Perween. Fifth, Evandro Danta. Sixth, Hero Encinas. Seventh place goes to Felipe Spetronev. Eighth, Simona Seminara. And rounding it out in ninth place, we got Santiago Barrios. So Amir, like we said, Bruno De Carmo going to have his work cut out for him once again, trying to battle all the way from the back of the pack. However, let's see if Josh Perween is able to take advantage of being towards the front of the grid now in heat number 2. And just like that, the green flag flies, and already a great start from Simona Seminara, able to lead the pack, followed by the Delinta Esports driver of Felipe Spetronev. So here we go, folks. We knew these two were going to come out, able to get it out on the front of the grid, able to come out super quick, but Simona Seminara able to take advantage of what was not his best race in heat number 1, getting caught up in the incidents. Now able to lead the pack on a course that he knows super well. But like we said, out here these guys really trying to battle out. It's going to be close in the middle of the pack once again, seen too wide throughout the rest of the field. Your leaders, Simona Seminara, Spetronev there in second place, Hero Encinas in third, followed by Jackson Asenge, Evandro Dantas, Barrios, Carmo, and Perween Araujo there towards the back of the field, but still a lot cleaner start than we had out in heat number 1. Again, lap number 1. So far, so good, but as we see a couple drivers now going off onto the grass just a little bit, that looked like that was fourth place. Jackson Asenge and the Delinta Esports car now trying to really just dial it back in. Of course, these guys out here on the cold tires, it's starting to come into play. They know how cautious that they have to be, but just like that, lap number 1 is through, and we made it through without any incidents. Amir, definitely these guys have focused in so much more than they were on heat number 1.
Yeah, definitely after the craziness of that first heat, it looks as though everybody's just settled in a bit and trying to be a bit more circumspect. Though, having said that, look at Spetronev attacking the side of Seminara, and Encinas as well, who's proven again that he's good at the starts, right up to the back here of the Italian and the Brazilian, with Spetronev side by side with Seminara.
And I was looking out there too, I didn't notice this on the timing screen earlier, but looking like someone that was unable to end up hitting the grid in qualifying. We had Felipe Barrichello Bart's out there, and just as I start talking about what's going on, an immense spin from Felipe Spetronev, so sending him all the way back to the pack. That one's definitely going to have a lot of damage to fix in the pits. Amir, we're definitely going to have to get a great replay on that one, as everything just unfolded so fast towards the front of the pack.
Oh, that's a big one as well. Resende spins into the pit lane, and that looked like Encinas being involved that one. Well, I think we might have spoken too soon. We thought that we're going to get a clean start, but unfortunately, the second lap afterwards just rears its head, and we're gonna see multiple views of that one.
Yeah, just like that. I mean, like we said, it's just a bit of chaos going on. I know those guys are going to have some words to see. There's been a bit of drama out in the paddock so far this season. So just like that, we'll have to see what happens from here. Again, everyone out there, especially whenever you go up against teammates, you definitely have people that have your back. So whether or not some of these, is it a racing incident? Did it look like it was on purpose? I'm going to leave that into the hands of the racing stewards for sure. So I'm sure, like I said, these guys are going to be exchanging some words after that one. But right now, still lap number 3, we have Simone Seminaro taking advantage of the chaos behind him, able to lead now over a second and a half over Hero Encinas. Bruno De Carmo right now, however, trying to be a bit careful. He knows, seen from the incidents, not just this race, but from earlier on in the season, how aggressive some of these other guys can be. And it looks like right there, a little bit of contact. George Road, these guys battling it out. And Amir, I'm not sure, again, if that is a racing incident going on in the field or if these drivers have a little bit of unsettled beef out here today.
And well, that time around, that was Encinas forcing the issue for De Carmo. He was on the outside, but then when the wheels locked, the cars hit each other, and a bit of afters as well. Encinas showing his displeasure there towards De Carmo, and there is Barrios to claim freebies on both of them. But again, I'll have to reiterate the point of Brazilian and Argentine rivalry. That was just literally coming to a head.
And just like that, like you've seen that, yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens, but I know both of those drivers right now are heated. So yeah, that's all I'm going to have to say about that incident. Again, we have plenty of people behind the scenes to look at that and see exactly what happened during the crash and what happened right after the crash as well. So I see some people out there in chat already talking about it amongst themselves, but here we go, full screen replay, just going on to the inside, and there's Simone Seminaro just getting super tight right there next to the number 52 car and just sending him into the barrier. So like I said, that one right there, again, that might have been a bit of hard racing going on. So the number 52 of Felipe Spechenev, of course, guys, that was the incident that happened earlier on in the race, not the one that is at the front of everyone's minds just a few laps down, or about a lap ago. But anyways, right now, still back to lap number 5, and things are already just tons of action, just left, right, and center, Amir. So much going on in heat number 2.
Oh, and apologies for that profanity on screen, Senora Speto. I'm pretty sure that is Felipe's significant other. She may not be so happy with that one because, yeah, again, that you might call it hard racing, Kevin, but I think there's a fine line where you can get away with it, because especially the way that these cars are just projectiles when they're out of control, it really becomes quite problematic when someone's out of control. You try to force the issue, and then an accident happens. So for Spechenev, he was actually going on the outside, and then Seminara tried to defend his way through, but unfortunately, because he forced the issue on the inside, there was no way through. And yes, Spechenev was a big victim out of that one, unfortunately.
And here we go, side by side again. Right now, we got a Miguel Araujo, Evandro Dantas. So these two drivers are going to come out of this one right now. It's looking like so far Miguel Araujo trying to just hold it now, going around the outside, but he will have the corner going into this next right-hander, and he will have third place. So Miguel Araujo doing a great job, but like we've seen, Evandro Dantas, not one of these drivers to give it up so easy, just holding on to the rear bumper of Araujo, now getting to the side of him once again. Trying to take that outside line, but like we've seen before, out in these cars, they might not have enough grip to really be able to get that overtake done on the outside. So he'll have to wait for that perfect opportunity again. We are only lap number 7 out here of 18, so not even halfway through heat number 2. Miguel Araujo, Evandro Dantas has plenty of time to make the move happen. Again, really it's just going to be about patience out here on this narrow track today. We've seen what happens when these drivers get a bit aggressive, not really being super patient with each other, and unfortunately, what we've seen so far, multiple drivers getting taken out. And right here, Dantas, a little bit sketchy right there. Again, trying to get that inside line, trying to really hold on to it, but the curbing out here has also been public enemy number 1.
Yeah, indeed, and it has caught a few drivers, including Barrios in that first heat. Now we're gonna get a full screen replay of what happened between, well, that's the one that we want to talk about, isn't it? And Cena's, and in this particular instance, he took out the number 9 car of Jackson Resende. Resende spent into the pit lane. Luckily though, the pit lane's right in front, so he can literally just go in and fix. But unfortunately for him, that compromises the race.
Yeah, like we said, just especially holding the line right there. I mean, again, really want to see a lot of safe driving from a lot of these guys out here, but that is not always the case. So right now we're back on track, lap number 8. Simona Seminara still in the lead. So the Assetto Corsa Competizione driver that we got to see in previous season, just being absolutely dominant, now really finding his bearings out here in iRacing, able to hold on that top spot pretty much all of heat number 2. But right now it's still about a second and a half between himself and Josh Perween. Perween able to set the fastest lap in qualifying, so we'll see if he has enough time to really reel in that P number 1. And Amir, we might have a battle going on between Seminara and Perween coming up.
Oh, definitely. Now we can see whether or not Seminara's dominance in ACC has prepared him somewhat to go with battle, especially wheel-to-wheel with someone who's been on iRacing for throughout almost his entire life. Now, this is the incident point of interest that we are really wanting to see what happened again. And, well, having seen it live, but now seeing it in replay, I'm not quite sure 100% who's at fault here. I would just place it into racing incident because, again, the Carmo was on the outside and Cena's was on the inside, but the Carmo had literally nowhere to go. He was on the AstroTurf, which was part of the allowed racing surface, but then when he tried to go back onto the hard stuff, the tarmac, and Cena's just had nowhere to go, and unfortunately the collision was almost inevitable. And here is that retaliation, as what Drift God mentioned. You might say retaliation, some might say as well that he had no control of his car because, again, that front is completely caved in and that front left tire has completely deflated. But we're trying to be as impartial as possible here. It's just in that heat of the moment, it's just some drivers, the emotions get the better of them. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one thing there was no doubt about is that there was really no room on the outside of the track there. So again, it's one of those things of these drivers, you have to give each other enough room. So that was one thing. Again, who it started with, who it ended with, we will have to leave that up to the racing stewards as they have the final say on what happens out here. But definitely between both of those drivers, things did get heated between the two of them, and they both ended up out of this race. So right now, it is still Simona Seminara. Josh Perween, like we've seen, he was closing the gap, but now Perween has closed it. So I'm not sure if Seminara, he had nearly a second more just a lap ago. So if he might have made a slight error in his driving that led to Josh Perween catching up so fast. Like I said, Amir, I expected this to be a battle going down to the last few laps. I did not expect Perween to be right on Seminara this quick in the race.
And look at the times though, 3/10 gain, almost 4/10 gained in just the first two sectors alone. I think Perween is just slightly faster in terms of pace than Seminara. Yes, we were hoping that it was in the closing stages, but we're still far away from the end of this heat. So really then Seminara is going to have to pull off a defensive job of dreams, something that will be no doubt noted by the likes of Hero and Sinas, who will be thinking, yeah, probably should not defend it too hard, or probably just give the other driver a bit more respect in terms of racing room. Granted, again, it takes two to tango. It's a two-way street. If the other driver is not giving enough room, then maybe in his mind that's why he kind of retaliated that way. But again, it's just not our call to say so. It's up to the drivers the way they drive, and afterwards the Cara stewards to decide whether which penalty is fair. But definitely Encinas will have to polish a bit in some parts of his driving. Now we're looking at Perween. He's trying to come through on the inside. Druid's here. He might just think about it, and you know what, that is one brave maneuver. But Seminara switches back here as we lose the cars behind trees.
So just like that, we see Josh Perween showing his strengths out here on the track, able to get that pass done fairly easy. Again, I don't think Seminara was really trying to fight him against seeing how many incidents have happened on this course. I think he's just playing it smart, saying, all right, I know how well I've been doing out here. I'm going to try and just stay behind the draft. I know where some of these tracks, on this track, you know, Seminara is no stranger out here to Oulton Park. So he knows where are good overtaking zones, where he can get it. Again, like I said, we're only lap 12 of 18 out here. There's still plenty of time for Seminara to try to hang on to the draft of Perrine, maybe study his lines just a little bit, see where he can start making up some of that time, and then try to make the lunge in later on. A little bit squirrely right there for Perrine. So again, like you said out here, patience is absolutely a virtue when it comes to tight tracks like this.
And of course, it goes without saying, you also need to be very careful when you're being patient as well. You never know that if you're being patient but you're not placing the car properly, you can still end up in a bit of a pickle when it goes into a spin. So luckily for Perrine, he kept it going. It looked quite dramatic on the outside, but I think it might be even more dramatic on the inside, how he had to put a bit of opposite lock to just get the car straightened out and go into that final sector still ahead. But he's not pulled away up in front here. Seminara is still within 2.5 tenths behind.
So here we go, folks. Now lap number 13 out here. Josh Perrine only about 0.3 of a second over Simone Seminara. So Seminara, like we said, doing a great job of just holding on to the rear bumper of Josh Perrine. Josh would love to get a win out here. I know it's been a while. We got to see him early on, I think out there in the chat, just kind of saying, man, this feels great to be able to be out there. And of course, him referring to his qualifying, being the top qualifier out here for AMX ZERO today. And we'll have to see, again, Josh Perrine, if he's going to end up showing up for some of these other races. We've had a lot of them. I know he has the I rating to do so. So, again, alongside how many of these drivers out here, Amir, we'll get to see coming up after this one. So, just a reminder, everyone, AMX 5 coming up shortly after this race. We're going to be taking it back to the Circuit of the Americas for an F1 race out here in iRacing. That is going to be a good one, but if it's going to be a continuation of what we have today, there may be a bit of chaos as well. Like we said, those cars, not a little bit harder to drive, so it should be very interesting to see. I think a lot of the Delete the Esports guys, those guys never seem to try and miss a race. If they're out here in AMX, they're going to try and be there. So that's going to be definitely difficult for them to go from a GR86 all the way up into a Mercedes W13.
Yeah, talk about contrast in it. We come from relatively low horsepower touring cars all the way up to high power single seaters, almost 1,000 horsepower in a Formula One car. So that is difference in two completely different worlds. But that's why we are here in AMX, but we love to experiment with so many different cars and formats. It just keeps drivers on their toes all the time. As speaking of keeping drivers on their toes, Seminara is keeping Josh very honest up in front here. He hasn't pulled away that we would have anticipated that he was going to do. So let's see if Seminara has enough of a juice in his car or his pace to try and get past Perrine.
And here we go. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think, we've mentioned it over and over about just how patient these drivers have to be, but I think right now, Seminara, now he only has about 4 laps left in this thing, is going to have to really start thinking about, okay, I might need to start trying to force a mistake out of Perrine. He knows that Perrine is a very quick driver, but if he can force him to drive absolutely defensive out here, I think that's where we've got to see earlier Josh Perrine start making some of these small little mistakes left and right, is when he's really feeling that immense amount of pressure. So I think for Perrine, he has to really just keep his head down, try not to mirror drive, and he has this one in the bag. If not, again, Seminara might just be putting the pressure on. But Amir, nonetheless, I think at this point in the race, both of these drivers have proved that both of them have what it takes to come out with the win out here today.
Yeah, definitely. We know that Seminara has pace in him. He knows Oulton Park, as you said, because he drives that on ACC as well. So he knows the circuit. Let's see what he can do here. Aventi Simone is what Italians would say here right now, whereas Aussie oi 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 for Josh Perrine is definitely going to be ringing in his ears. An Italian versus an Australian up in front. Really, it's going to be fascinating. You can see two different drivers with two different philosophies in the way they drive, just getting to grips with the final couple of laps here. In fact, 3 laps to go after this for Seminara to make any difference to Josh Perrine's lead.
So here we go, folks. So Just a little bit over 2 laps left in this one now. Seminara, again, I think, like I said, whenever he comes from ACC out into iRacing, Seminara is no slowpoke out in ACC. So he definitely has all of the fundamentals. Again, it just comes down to what is the feel of the car out here on the track? How do the tires feel? How do the tires handle? I think that's really the biggest difference, Amir, that most people say when they come from ACC into iRacing or vice versa, is just the tire feel as well as a slight difference in the physics. But like we said, we know he is an amazing driver, as he has proven out here on track today, able to keep up with Josh Perween out here. You're really your pole sitter from qualifying now. Seminara able to just battle it out back and forth. Again, we had that incident going on early on in the race that led to these guys being able to kind of escape the chaos a bit. So Seminara still holding on to second place from the start of the race. Josh Perween up 5 positions from where he started on the grid.
Yeah, and talking about difference in physics, you can see that Poco Prata giving his 2 cents. ABS and TC in iRacing are completely different. Yep, agreed, because having an iRacing subscription myself, been testing some of the cars on here. It's just a matter of trying to get used to the braking on this thing, because it's completely different compared to some other sim racing titles. You just have to brake in a certain way and then bleed the car into the corners. Well, not bleed the car, I mean bleed off the brakes, to allow the car to just come through into the corners cleanly, like what we are seeing Josh doing right now. So again, Seminara is learning with every single corner and every single lap that he's following an iRacing exponent in the form of Josh Perween.
So here we see still now Josh Perween still leading the race as the white flag comes out, folks. So it is now or never for Simone Seminara. He's going to have to put everything that he's learned out here in iRacing on the line if he wants to overtake Josh Perween. Josh Perween having a bit more experience than Seminara, but both of them not really worrying about who's behind them. It's going to come down to the battle towards the front of the pack. Josh Perween going to have to keep it super clean the rest of this lap if he wants to take home that much beloved championship win out here. So again, leading in the points, Perween not participating as much as he'd like to in AMX, but he came out here today focused. He was a man on a mission, putting it down for himself, putting it down for his country. Again, the Aussie coming out for AMX ZERO, showing what he can do, and definitely a name that he will put out here for everyone to remember for the rest of the season. Josh Perween definitely looking quite good right now, leading the gap over a second, turned on the jets, started leaving Seminara behind. Amir, I know he's going to be super happy about this one.
Oh, definitely, he'll be so stoked, and he'll be looking forward to AMX 5. He's taking part after this on a high. What a win to do so. He overtook Seminara at the best possible time and just held on to the lead despite Seminara fighting back, but he just couldn't be overtaken. So Perween wins in front of Seminara, and Araujo makes it to back-to-back podiums here for the Iberian driver. Dantas in 4th. Barrios will come across the line 17 seconds behind. Dantas in 5th. We're waiting for the unfortunate Tony Kanaan drivers after Dantas and Barrios. The Carmos, Petronev, and Resende all being involved in separate accidents with Hero and Sinas. And I think, no doubt, they will be just more fired up in their belly to go into the next race after this with full intent of trying to take that by the horn.
And like I said, we got to see the drama unfold out here in AMX ZERO. I think it's been brewing up from quite a few of the races. Even before the mid-season break, there was a bit of controversy, and now we've seen it come to full fruition out here in AMX ZERO. So for those of you that don't think AMX ZERO isn't that interesting, I say nay. It has been great times, bad times, everywhere in between. Some absolute crazy battles, but nonetheless out here, Oulton Park, Josh Perween, your BenQ session winner, coming atop, followed by Simone Seminara in 2nd place, Miguel Araujo in 3rd, Vander Dantas 4th, Santiago Barrios 5th, Bruno De Carmo 6th place, Felipe Petronev in 7th, Jackson Senjay in 8th, and Erosina in 9th place. So, like we said, Amir, definitely we all have our speculation for what happened in that race. Nonetheless, it will all come down to the racing stewards' decision, how they will handle the situation going forward. But I mean, I think right now, though, definitely looking forward to what is going to happen coming up very soon. AMX 5, like we mentioned, Formula One cars, the AMG W13 to be more specific, the 2022 car that was used by the Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team. We're going to see what these drivers can really put into practice. And speaking of practice, I've already seen a few guys out there that I'm very much looking forward to once we hit the checkered flag, once we hit qualifying Heat 1, Heat 2. Again, AMX 5 rules a little bit different this time around, so Heats 1 and 2 making it a little bit interesting for our drivers. But Amir, what was your biggest takeaway from AMX ZERO for today's race?
I think it might be just the amount of carnage that we had. That's the biggest takeaway. Because again, it's a shorter circuit compared to the normal international circuit layer that we have in Oulton Park. It's just that in cars like this, where it's chuckable and light on power, the drivers get a little bit more aggressive when they try to overtake. So it provides some good close action, but unfortunately, some drivers got too close, and ultimately we had a lot of talking points in terms of accidents for this one, Kevin.
Definitely so. Everyone out there, make sure to check out all of our social medias that pop up on screen, as well as sticking around for a while. Like I said, coming up very shortly, we are going to be having our AMX 5 race back to the USA Circuit of the Americas. For all of the F1 fans out there, we got to see them race in real life last weekend with a bit of drama again between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, if there's going to be more drama unfolding out here for AMX 5. But with that, we will be right back after a short break. Don't go anywhere. Max Verstappen back into first place. They want to make that move, but here goes Gustavo Ariel diving to the inside. Gael Valero looking for the move over Archie Neumann. He has it.
And you can just see Peter Zuba pushing Florian Labigra right over.
Oh, Chris Lallum, he does make that pass.
Gael Valero doing his best on the outside, gets sideways, and no, the teammates crash. We had the number 11 going right there. 3 wide out there in the middle of the field, through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shots of the entire season.
Towards the Mickey Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash.
2 wide now, door to door. Max Verstappen to Vanderdantes. Max Verstappen able to safely rejoin. Slots it right in front of another car.
Carousel immediately, he gets punted off. That was Saavedra. Aguilar, he's gone up, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin. Oh, no.
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lallum does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make the pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand. And this is it. Chris Lallum seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lallum takes it.
Miranda Peter Zuba into the wall.
It's actually Valero. Valero's actually gone off into the barriers, coming up to the cutting.
David Todd making his way back up, has already climbed 7 positions.
I spoke too soon there. Sandy goes up.
So right now, this is going to be where it's going to get shaken up. David Toth passes them while they are in the pit through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shows of the entire season.
So we have 3-way battle going to the most dangerous turn of the mountain. Up the mountain, we have contact right there. These guys going absolutely crazy. It's going to come down to the final corner, Murray's corner. Who is going to have to lead? We may have a drag race to the finish line on our hands, folks. You see David Toth right now going into the pit lane.
We go racing for heat number 1 here in Austria over AMX 20 in towards the Niki Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash. That's a huge lunge from Gaston Kahavi, and he's made contact with, I believe, wow, it's a chaotic moment here. No slipstream in front for either car, and you can just see Peter Silva pushing Florian Lavigra right over.
Here we go then, Valeri, he looks left, he looks right, he's going through the right hand side, which is the inside going into turn 3.
Here it is. This is the crucial moment in this race. And it's looking like it's only going one way. David Toth is going to take the race lead. Heading into the second half of the season, the Hungarian of David Toth has driven a masterclass here with the early pit stop. Not the ideal strategy, but an ideal race winner and an excellent performance.
To save our home, we must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Another great day of racing as we head it back to the United States of America, to the Lone Star State of Texas. Welcome back, everybody, to Season 6, AMX 5, where we are at the Circuit of the Americas for a great F1 race today. I know this one is going to be 20 corners of high-speed action all day long. Coming to you from the booth, it is Kevin alongside Amir. Amir, we already had some crazy action going on for AMX ZERO early on during the day. I mean, if things go that way, I expect it to be more of the same going on. We have a lot of the same drivers already coming into this F1 race. In your opinion, how much different do you think this AMX 5 race is going to be compared to what we already seen early on?
Definitely way different in terms of the speed, that's for sure, and the class of car already. But I think the drivers will be a bit more cautious about the contact, because what you can get away with closed cars, you know, the wheels where they're not exposed to the elements, they might just be a bit more circumspect here. So I think we still will see some thrills and spills here and there, but overall it might just be a bit more measured compared to what we saw just now in the GT86 cars.
Absolutely. We already got a preview from the Super Formula race a few weeks back, but right now another great open wheel race. But like we said, we've been here already. This is week number 7. We've been here since September 7th, and we're going to be going all the way through into November 17th with this season's prize pool of over $11,000 plus next level racing gear. For our AMX 5 races, the format goes as following. We got that 20-minute qualifier, followed by a top 15 reverse grid, going into heat number 1 of 35 minutes, followed by a second top 15 reverse grid, and that second heat a little bit shorter of 25 minutes. So another thing to keep in mind is a little bit longer for heat number 1. They also have a mandatory pit stop in that one as well. For all of our drivers out there on track, driver cams are required. You can get the link via the AMX Discord or over on the website. Payouts are done in balances over $100 paid out every single month. Once you hit that $100 to your account, expect that money headed your way. And we are here every single Saturday and Sunday this season. Like I mentioned, you can get signed up to race anytime over at amxrace.com. We're here every single Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays starting it off with AMX ZERO at 5:50 p.m. GMT, followed by AMX 5 right after at 7:10 p.m. On Sundays, we got AMX 10, our TCR World Tour this season, starting at 5:50 p.m. GMT, followed by the second race at 7:20 p.m. And on the opposite weekends, we got our AMX 15 mini endurance races going on starting at 5:50 p.m. So make sure to stick around tomorrow for that one as well. For our AMX 5 races, this is how the prizes are paid out. So we got qualifying, starting it off with $12.50 going to first place, $10 to second, $7.50 to third, and going all the way down into 15th place. For heats number 1 and number 2, a little bit different this season. Heat number 1, we got $25 for first, $20 for second, and third $15, again all the way down to 15th place. So double the points for heat number 1 and heat number 2, going back down to $12.50 for first, $10 for second, $7.50 for third, all the way back down to 15th place, with the fastest lap being set in both heats 1 and 2, getting an extra $2, with a total prize pool per race of $250. For everyone that wants to get involved in these races, there is a minimum 2,000 iRating for our AMX 5 races. So if you want to get out here, win some awesome prize money, we'd love to have you out on track. We still got a few weeks left in this one, but again, today, out here at the Circuit of the Americas, it's going to be a good one from a lot of these drivers that we're already seeing on track. Our top 10 so far has been looking out here. We have Victor Randolina in 10th place. I know it says AMX 15 top 10 on there, but I'm going to bring back the AMX 5. So 10th place, we got Victor Miranda. 9th place, we have Toby Soriano. 8th, Simon Demori. 7th, Evandro Dantas. 6th, Jackson Asenje. 5th place, we got Ralph Benitez. 4th, Juan Blanat. 3rd, Bruno De Carmo. 2nd place, Pedro Dean. And your leader, which, again, the man all season long been dominating, Gael Valero, already 2-time AMX champion, back-to-back champion, should I say, looking to make it 3 seasons in a row, already leading with quite a significant gap up at the top. But Amir, this is the bread and butter of the Circuit of the Americas featuring F1 cars. We got to see it last weekend in real life. A great race at the US Grand Prix. I know we're going to see a lot of great racing today.
Yes, definitely. And given the fact that you can utilize DRS here as well, will make it absolutely interesting. COTA, or is its full name, the Circuit of the Americas, first opened in 2012 and has become the somewhat permanent home to the US Grand Prix. Based in the city of Austin, Texas, and in the US of A, this 5.5 kilometer circuit has definitely been one of the firm favorites among drivers because of how technical it is. You can see that the start-finish straight goes uphill into an open, very wide first turn before it just closes up on the exit. So we might see quite a few drivers come a cropper there if they're not careful. Then the final sector where you can see it's a reverse of Istanbul Park, where it's a triple right-hander supposed to be a triple left-hander. So a varying degrees of extremes. You can see some familiar corners from other tracks around the world put together on this, but definitely it's one of Tilke's latest hits, shall we say, and it's a great circuit to house the cars that we're going to have here today, Kevin.
Oh man, like I said,
And
one of the favorites in the service for a lot of people, Amir.
Indeed. And speaking of the cars, Kevin, here is the Mercedes-AMG F1 W13. Well, an unlucky number for some. Certainly for Mercedes, this was a bit of a step back in terms of their real-life performance. But nonetheless, it did claim a win in the hands of George Russell in Brazil at Sao Paulo for the Brazilian Grand Prix, or now it's called the Sao Paulo City Grand Prix. 1,070 horses, and with the weight being 1-to-1, so 1,000 horsepower and 1,000 kilos of weight. So really, rear-wheel drive, flappy pedal gearbox. It's just best of all worlds, in fact. So really, can't wait to see how this particular piece of kit will handle the demands of a modern Grand Prix circuit.
And out here on the circuit, I mean, we're going to see definitely once these guys get into qualifying and into the races. But, of course, with that huge uphill going into turn number one, we can expect there to be a bit of chaos going through there, especially that's a really difficult turn no matter really what racing series comes here. So especially in super fast cars like these, when they hit that super low downforce going into turn one, that bit of a hairpin, again, we'll have to wait and see what happens lap number one on turn one. 133 foot hill, 11% grade all the way up from the start finish line to the top of the hill there. Probably the most prominent feature on this entire course. I mean, I know a lot of other people, when they're asked what their dream track is, we've got to see a lot of people saying that they would love to have that crazy hill out here. A lot of people also compare it to another American track of Laguna Seca known the Corkscrew. Just such a huge elevation change, probably some of the two biggest elevation changes in any racetrack.
Definitely. And from the highest of highs in the start of the track to some of the low parts here, for example, to the final sector coming at the start finish straight, you can see the elevation change is quite extreme. And for these cars, some of the slower corners, because apart from what we saw just now, it is not 1,000 kilos, by the way. These are in fact almost close to 800, but still, because due to the way that they are heavy nowadays and very big 18-inch rims that are on these cars now, slower speeds can become quite tricky. So that's why you see what we just saw there, Pedro Dean finding the limits at how to drive this car in the slow bits, and in the fast section you can just keep it pinned. So really, it's a mix of extremes. One, you can actually go flat out in certain areas like here, while the other parts, the slow corners, can be the most trickiest.
Yeah, and as we got to see last weekend for the F1 race, again, we'll have to keep an eye on a couple of these turns out here. I know turn 19 being one of them, turn 12. So a few different places for the guys that know the track pretty well. We got to see even in real life during the practices as well as qualifying, just some of these guys starting to spin out, as we just seen like Pedro Dean. A couple of these corners can very much lead to that snap oversteer that they might not be used to in something akin to a GT3 car. Like I said, very unique driving style in these vehicles. We got to see a few weeks ago. The Super Formula is a little bit different than a Formula One car, but still blazingly fast. When we were out at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, we got to take a look at Pedro Dean taking home a win, as well as Gael Valero, both of them battling it back and forth. Unfortunately, Well, I mean, actually, I guess fortunately, we do have that same thing going on right now. Gael Valero currently in the top spot, as well as Pedro Dean just behind him in second place. But here's another man that we got to see take home a win earlier on today in AMX ZERO. Josh Perween putting it down today for putting it down today in a sea of Brazilians. The Australian Perween really coming to see if he can make it 2 different wins in a day. Of course, the GR86 Cup car, very different from an F1. So we'll see how he's able to adapt. But so far, it's looking like he's adapting very well as he's in 3rd place in qualifying. Now, coming across the line, is he going to improve his time? Unfortunately not. But he's looking pretty well so far, Amir.
Actually, in fact, he was ramping up for the next lap because he was trying to recharge his batteries and not push it too hard, because again, if you put it in quali mode, you can only use it for that entire stretch. Then after that, when you actually go into a cool off period where the battery is not being used, as what we're seeing with Pedro, Ralph Benitez here right now, he's just coming off, going full pelt and just conserving the battery power and a bit of the tires for the next run. As Poker Prata did point out just now, that stringing a lap together around COTA is quite difficult, and I do agree to that, because it can be quite crazy that there's fast areas like the start-finish straight and the back straight that leads up to this final sector, but then that slow bits, that's when you can try to use more of the tires compared to the battery power to get the lap time out. And even then, are you lucky enough to just still have enough battery power to power your way through the final sector and then set a lap time? It really does become important then why some drivers push in that first lap and then go off in the second lap.
So you can see, like we said, we are just over halfway through the qualifying session right now. So about 11 minutes into this 20-minute qualifying session. Again, there are double points for heat number 1, a 35-minute race rather than a 25-minute race, as well as these drivers having to take a mandatory pit stop. So a little bit different than what we see in Formula 1 races. Formula 1, those drivers have to go on to multiple tire compounds. Out here, not really having to worry about that as much as just them hitting the pit stop. Again, we'll see most of these drivers, as quick as the pit stops are around here, they may very much so opt to take a second set of tires going on. Again, we'll have to keep an eye on what the strategies really come to. So far all season long, really the strategy has came down to a lot of what happens in the pits, Amir.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you did point out during the overview, that we do have pit stops mandatory in this first heat. So the tires, of course, they can actually make it at least beyond halfway through that particular stint, but after that they're gonna follow the cliff. So soft tires may not be part of the race strategy. They might have to go to mediums or hards so that they could actually just extend the stints. As Perwin comes to the pits now, exits, driving for it looks like the black car's racing colors, but according to the team list, he's part of Vermilion Motorsports, which is not to my knowledge what the team that he drives for, but either way, some familiar colors that he is driving. Coming out of the pits, ready for a second time lap. Valero, though, still up in front, winning on it.
And so we got to see, like we said, Super Formulas, a lot of these same guys out here on track today. Gael Valero taking home a win. Pedro Dean taking home the big win in heat number 2. But the consistency from Gael Valero took him with the overall win in points for that day. So, I mean, that's really the beauty of AMX is, you know, challenging these drivers out here from qualifying all the way up into both heats. Whereas something, you know, akin to real life, where really it comes down to how do you do in the race. Qualifying, again, puts you in that first place. But with that reverse grid, really shaking it out here. But it is seen consistency has been the key to coming out on top every single season. Again, one of the champions, Gael Valero, out here looking to make it 3 seasons in a row to take home a championship, and so far looking very good for him. Right now, again, like we said, we're going to see a lot of these guys still running in the Petronas livery. I know there's been a lot of back and forth on iRacing about whether or not these cars should be able to run anything but the Petronas livery. A lot of legalities, everything else going on there, but I'm not going to bore you with that. Right now, back aboard with Pedro Dean, of course. Pedro Dean, I always love it, just the color schemes that he has as well. The lime green really standing out from the crowd.
And you know, it does become part of a heritage thing because it looks like Braun GP. And guess what Braun GP evolved into? Mercedes-AMG. So that's a really nice touch that Pedro Dean decided to put in. And a nice touch as well that he has actually gone on to pole position, or rather setting the fastest time in qualifying almost 2/10 faster than Valero. So he literally pulled that out of the bag without us even noticing. So he's in the pits and now back on the track, ready to see if he could extend the gap between himself and Valero.
Yeah, I think last time that we were on again when we were out at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, we try to make predictions. Honestly, I think with the size of the grid today, it's really hard to see. I kind of want to see some of these underdogs come out here and be able to get that top step of the podium. Of course, Circuit of the Americas, really a lot of guys either come out here and have that bit of an underdog story, or they just come out here and absolutely dominate. I mean, anything can happen, as we can see. It can be an extremely difficult track if you're not super confident with it, as well as I'm not sure how much practice some of these guys have gotten in these vehicles. The hybrid Formula Ones, that's probably going to be the biggest difference compared to some of the other vehicles. Well, most of the other vehicles out in iRacing is, like you mentioned, Amir, really just having to pay attention to DRS, having to pay attention to their hybrid system as well.
DRS, and then whether or not you push it into some mode that you want to use. Because the way that this car works is that if you put it in following mode, for example, you can use it for a certain time, then it has to cool off here where you can't go back to that. So really, that's why you see some of these guys are having very slow outlets. They do not want to use the battery power. They want to set that battery back and then amp it up for the push lap. And after that, go for another in lap to start their immediate next lap and then go for it again. So really, it is an entire process, and that's why the drivers in the state, it is going to be even if it's just a slight oversteer or going off track, it will hurt.
Yeah, so just like that, yeah, we'll have to see. Now we have about the 3 minutes left to go out here in qualifying. Of course, a little bit different as well, qualifying in iRacing versus qualifying in Formula One. Of course, it's a bit of a shootout for Formula One, going from Q1, Q2, Q3. Of course, the 5 drivers in Q1 getting knocked out, down all the way to the top 10, kind of battling it out for those final grid positions. But out here, we're not really going to have to worry about that. Again, we have 8 drivers out on the field today. Most of them pretty comfortable no matter what sort of single seater, what sort of open wheelers that you put them in, as well as some of these guys that we got to see previously. I know last weekend we had the Petite Le Mans, a lot of these drivers out there for that one, as well as myself. So definitely great to see all of the drivers out in all the different cars. Again, AMX, that's what we love to do. Push these drivers to their limits, no matter the vehicle, no matter the track. And right now, it's still Gael Valero taking back that top spot. So again, Gael Valero was leading. He got taken that top spot away from battle going on once again. Same thing that we got to see with the super formulas. I expect we're going to see that very same thing from our top 2 drivers.
Yeah, Pedro Dean is showing once again that single seaters is his forte, and he's trying to channel his inner Ayrton Senna, his Nelson Piquet, his Emerson Fittipaldi, his Carlos Pache, whichever national hero, or even, Felipe Massa and Rubens Barrichello. They just want to channel their inner national superstar and just try to nail that one lap that will send them up to the front of the timing sheets in this session. But now, Pedro Dean, though, that is not a very good first corner, though. That really went wide. So maybe he carried too much speed or locked up a bit. Whatever it is compromised his run here.
Yeah, like I said, turn 1, I think, as well as turns 11 and 12. Those going to be a little bit tighter of corners. These guys are going to have to really nail it, as well as coming out of the final turn onto the backstretch. Whoever is going to get a great run from that is really going to have a great chance of overtaking coming into turns number 1. So, I mean, again, Circuit of the Americas, a pretty unique track. I know a lot of people, I think they either love this track or hate this track. I know there's a lot of NASCAR fans out there too that get to see whenever they run NASCAR out at Circuit of the Americas, there's a little bit of mixed feelings on how they run it. Of course, being one of the few, I know there, Josh Purry, not sure if he hit track limits there, went a little bit wide, but we can see just how precise you have to be in these vehicles if you really want to push them to the absolute limit.
Yeah, I thought Perwin was gonna nail it there, but that last sector was hurting him. And I looked at the timing sheets. Yep, he did go off track, so that definitely was why his time did not count to it. Even if he set the fastest time of all, it's not going to topple Valero, but that first sector looks so good. I thought for a second that he might just nail it, but nope. He has to settle for fourth fastest time here. It is Valero though, proving that he is good in open wheelies as he is in tin top.
And just like that, qualifying coming to an end. We have a bit of a smaller grid out here. It's going to be great news for those guys from the front of the pack, as well as the man right here, the man, the myth, the legend, Gael Valero, out in that top spot, your BenQ session winner, followed by Pedro Dean, shortly behind him in second place, only 0.018 of a second, right behind Gael Valero. Expect that to be a great battle. Jackson Asenge in third place, Josh Perween fourth place, Pedro Mora in fifth, Ralph Benitez in sixth. In seventh place, we ended up getting Mateus Machado and Evandro Dantas rounding it out in eighth. So these guys now reverse grid. Evandro Dantas going to be in that pole position, really going to have to be extremely defensive going into turn number one. But as well, we have the likes of a couple of Delinta Esports drivers now sporting their world championship in iRacing. So they got their world championship license out there. So far, it's looking like a lot of these guys are opting to take the hard tires right away as well.
Yep, definitely the hard tire is the way to go, because the soft tire does hit that certain point where it's not going to be as usable compared to some of the tires that are used for the race, mediums and hards, for example. That's the best tire compound to use for this one. Quality tires definitely soft, so really it's a matter of whether or not they can actually extend this stint. It remains to be seen.
And looking out here, so the track temp right now, it's almost 30 degrees out in Austin, Texas, and the track temp reading in at about 38 degrees. So again, Texas known for being a little bit warmer out here at Circuit of the Americas, so we'll really have to see how the tire wear. Most of the guys out on hards, a couple of the guys, I'm not sure if that was a mistake. It's looking like, if the timing screen's right, they're out there on the wet tires by accident. So that might have just been a bit of a misconfiguration, a bit of miscommunication. But nonetheless, we are moments away from the green flag. The lights going out now at the Circuit of the Americas, and still a great start up front from Evandro Dantas. Pedro Mora falling back just a little bit as we go up the hill into turn number one. A few people going three wide right there in the middle of the field, and we already have the first spin out of the day. That's going to be Josh Perween getting taken out there. Now Pedro Dean up into second place right behind Evandro Dantas. Ralph Benitez shortly in third. Josh Perween able to take over now up third place. So a bit of chaos there that I might have misspoke earlier on turn number one. We had, again, man, these cars going so fast, there could be an incident at any moment out here.
Yeah, interesting to note that on our timing screens it says that it's wet tires for Evandro Dantas. I think it might just be a visual bug on the timing screen, because it looks as though he is on the medium tires. So it's a slight change. You can see that it's shiny, so that's slicks, as opposed to being blue tires on the top, which means that's wet. So yeah, you can see that's medium tires then. But Josh, with a good start here, battling with Pedro Dean. So Pedro then up in front. Pedro. That is the signature song for him right now. Up in front he goes, and Perwin follows suit.
So yeah, I mean, really going to be interesting to say. Like I said, that unfolded so fast. We knew there was going to be a bit of chaos going into turn one, especially lap one. Whenever we have the larger grids out here, still with 8 drivers, a lot of them pretty close in terms of their time. Pedro Dean now the biggest mover of the day, up 6 positions already, able to secure that first place spot over Josh Perween. But like we said, Josh Perween is no slouch either. As long as he's able to keep it within the track limits, I think he's going to be up on the podium. He's very quick. We got to see him out in qualifying. It's just those littlest of mistakes really that did it in for a lot of these drivers. And now Pedro Dean so far setting the fastest lap. I expect these laps to only get faster. Now we're heading back into turn number one. Pedro Dean now the middle of the pack. Jackson Asenge trying to fight off Evandro Dantas, shortly followed by Ralph Benitez back there as well. So a couple of different drivers out there in the lime green liveries today. Gael Valero already hitting the pits, so we'll have to see. It looks like he's going to keep the same hard tire compound that he already had on as now he comes out of the pit. So Gael Valero looking to run the entire race on those hards.
Yep, and he's just ticked off that mandatory pit stop box. So really, that's what he wanted. He wanted to get some clear air while also clearing the mandatory pit stop thing that he has to go through. So he's in clear air, 70 seconds behind Mora, yes, granted, but he will be in such clean air that he's allowed to just get more fastest laps in. And crucially, he might just be able to chip away at the delta between himself and race leader Pedro Dean.
There we go, still lap number 2. Pedro Dean holding it so far so good. We're going to see if he's able to start getting that gap a little bit more over Josh Perween. Josh Perween, like we said, not having the best of qualifying time, but as we got to see from AMX ZERO earlier on today, a lot of these drivers really just getting comfortable in the car will get faster and faster as the race goes on. So right now, again, we'll have to keep an eye out. I think Pedro Dean has a really good chance considering that incident that happened on turn number 1 at the beginning of the race. Gael Bolero now 17 seconds behind everyone else. I think he's really just going to try and get as much clean air as he can, really set fast lap after fast lap, and hope that he can get the undercut from these guys. But now Pedro Dean once again setting the fastest lap, a 1:39.292. So going up even faster now. We have Mateus Machado coming in here into the mix, a little bit farther in the back of the pack, but still trying to get the work done over Evandro Dantas as now they come back into turn number 1. But we have Pedro Moura as well coming right behind that, really just getting late on the brakes into turn 1. So again, there's really a few key turns out here. I know we got to see last weekend between Verstappen and Norris going into turn number 12. So far we haven't had any incidents right now. People really trying to overtake. I think they're really trying to get the draft on some of these straights, use that DRS. Again, strategy is going to be where it comes down to out in today's race.
Yep, and with the medium tires that Machado has, you'd think that he'll be much faster than Pedro Moura behind him, who actually suffered that opening lap spin. But it looks as though Machado is actually being hunted here by Moura onto the back straight. The two Brazilians fighting each other. It's been a while since we said Brazilians in F1 since Felipe Massa retired a few years back. Here we go then. Moura on the inside overtakes Machado and takes Dantas in one go. So you can see a little smirk on his face. He got 2 for 1 there, and what a brilliant maneuver. He had the assistance of DRS and slipstream. You can see that ear to ear, he's happy with that one.
But just like that, yeah, like you said, great moves. I expect to see a lot more of these going on throughout the day. Again, we got 22 laps out here at Circuit of the Americas in the Formula 1 W13 AMG car. A lot of people, they have, probably not everyone's favorite car in real life. Of course, back in the 2022 season, once the new regulations came in place after such a tight battle in Formula 1 for 2021, going into 2022 with new car, new regulations, definitely put a bit of a damper on Mercedes-AMG F1 team. So, but nothing out here. These guys definitely taking good advantage of the cars. Look at Josh Perween right there. He's just so relaxed. The man is out here. Again, I'm not sure. It's pretty early in the morning out there in Australia if he's just trying to stay awake at times. So, I mean, still so far, though, holding it down really well in second place.
And case in point, both drivers set almost identical lap times, 39.1 for Dean and Berwin. So he's not being lost here, as now he's going to use the DRS to just claw a little bit of that deficit, and Dean likewise thinks a bit to the left-hand side of the circuit, try to break the toe, but Berwin with the DRS is going to get much, much closer. He's edging ever so slightly to the back of the Brazilian, but no way through just yet. So I think, because look at that, the tire he's on right now, the softs, he's probably just conserving it. Maybe he's going to hit the halfway point around lap 11 and then bolt on another pair of softs to go all the way to the end.
And I know from some of these other ones, we've seen a lot of people asking, hey, in iRacing, if they're going to bring back, especially for IMSA, that being such a big championship, both in real life and on iRacing, a lot of the iRacing special events using the IMSA vehicles, people have been asking, hey, when are they going to start introducing multiple tire compounds? You have them out there in the F1 car. Why can't we get multiple tire compounds and everything else? And I'd have to say, I agree. I mean, that really just makes it that much more of how much you have to strategize out here. So Josh Perween still out here on those red Pirellis, really trying to keep up. He's doing a great job. Like I said, Pedro Dean out there in first place. For Pedro Dean being out on the hard tires is still holding it off. It's been almost a second gap nearly this entire time. So I think when Pedro Dean goes in, again, is he going to go for the mediums? Is he going to go for the softs? We'll just have to wait and see what his strategy is out there. So, as well as this is one of those things, how many of these people have someone on their team in their ear, really just kind of spotting for them, saying where things are in the race, running strategies with them? I know it would be a little bit different if we had a full 10 teams, 20 cars out here, but nonetheless, these guys still putting it down all day long. Amir, it never ceases to amaze me, the guys that run 2 races in a day, whatever the class categories are. By that second race, they must be exhausted. still able to put it there. But there we see Jackson SNJ taking advantage of it now, able to get up into second place.
Yeah, you can see that the DRS helped big time as Bowen looks as though I think he's just going to let him through just to conserve his tires because he's playing that quite nicely. No use fighting. You're going to exhaust your battery pack. You're going to exhaust your tires. It's not going to help out in your race in the long run. So might as well just let Resende through and let him have a go at Pedro Dean. So you're going to see a Brazilian battle up in front.
Yeah, and that's someone asking out there. Yes, heat number 1 does have a mandatory pit stop. So you can see here there on the timing tower, Gael Valero, Ralph Benitez, the 2 drivers that have already taken their mandatory pit stop. So we do not have a mandatory multiple compounds out here, but the pit stops definitely are mandatory. So as well, if you guys, like you just seen the live timing, I think someone pinned it out in the chat as well. As you'll see it periodically, scan the QR code, you get to see up here what we're seeing. Definitely makes it a lot more interesting out there. So Pedro Dean still in the lead. Jackson SNJ, however, now closing that gap ever so slightly. So Jackson SNJ out there on those red Pirellis, on the softs, definitely has a bit more grip going into this, but also being on that softer tire compound does mean that he's going to start wearing through it a little bit faster as well.
And if he continues to push the way that he's done so far in the past couple of laps, he might just run the risk of having lower grip compared to his rivals around him, with Dean and Perwin still within earshot. And look at the sector times. It looks as though Dean has picked up the pace a bit in this lap. That first sector, look at that, 2 tenths and a tenth gained by Resende. But the second sector, Dean is gaining. Third sector though, Perwin's back at it. And look at Resende, right up to the back of his fellow countryman. So looks as though Dean has taken a little bit too gingerly in this particular lap.
And that too, just so to clear it up for some of the people out there asking about the different tire compounds, reds are soft, yellows are mediums, white are hards. And if you see anyone out there on the blue tires, that means they have opted for the wet rain tires. So right now, like I said, a little bit of a visual glitch in the live timing, but nonetheless, still great to see. You can see it by the sidewall of their tires out here. Pedro Dean, I mean, we knew it was going to be a battle back and forth for first place, but again, Jackson Sanjay looking like, he's getting very comfortable compared to where he was earlier on in the day. A lot of the Delete the Esports guys having Tony Kanaan to back them. Of course, Tony Kanaan famously known for IndyCar, but there are a lot of similarities how you drive an IndyCar versus how you would drive a Formula One car. So that single-seater is definitely playing into here, as well as Jackson Ascension being one of those drivers that has that World Championship class racing. So I think Jackson Ascension out there is one of the drivers in the F4 Esports Championship currently. So a lot of this experience and battles going on with some of the top pro esports drivers definitely showing out here on track today.
Yeah, definitely. And for Resende, as you pointed out, the World Championship rating shows, yep, his single-seater rating is quite good. And so is Ralph Benitez. He's also one of the other 2 drivers that has the World Championship rating. As you can see then, one of the World Championship drivers trying to go for a lunge side by side between Resende and Dean, but looks as though Resende
So beautiful move right there. Like I said, just trying to be a little bit more aggressive. I know Pedro Dean just trying to stay in the zone, trying to keep it safe, as we got to see the last race at the Super Formulas when we're out at the Nürburgring. Pedro Dean had a bit of an incident on the final lap that kind of, just shown what happens when you push it to the absolute limit. But I think Jackson Ascension is out here showing why you have to really be on the edge the entire race if you want to be in that top spot. So I think Pedro Dean now going to just have to lock in and really hunt back down Jackson Ascension again. We'll see which one of these drivers tries to go. If Pedro Dean really is going to go for that undercut, maybe pit a little bit earlier than Jackson Ascension, as well as Josh Perween now back in his rear view mirror. So I think this is a place that's hard to be whenever you're sandwiched between 2 really fast drivers. The pressure is on and you cannot make any little mistake at all.
Well, definitely. And the mistake he made last time was the fact that he wasn't pushing hard enough in that particular lap, does Pedro Dean. It was a 40.8 compared to the other 2 drivers around him, doing a 39.8 for Josh Bowen and a 38.8 for Resende. So Resende, of course, with the help of DRS, was way faster. It really does put the point that maybe Dean is probably struggling a bit with tire life, as someone's actually just pointing out that Josh is leading back a lot. Yes, he does, because he's actually racing with the Next Level Racing FGT rig. So that's why he is actually leaned back a bit. As we look at drivers further behind, Valero goes for the switchback and takes a position away from Machado. So between the drivers that have stopped and not stopped, Valero is a class of his own right now. He is leading that line of drivers who has pitted, which is only one.
Yeah, so I'm seeing there now Ralph Benitez as well back there, pitted on lap number 4. So we got Gael Valero up in 5th place. Again, it was looking very good for him once he got all that clean air to really start making up time and then got into the mix of things out here. Gael Valero, no doubt he has the pace to be able to get back up onto the podium, but with that lap 1 incident definitely hurting his chances just a little bit. So we'll have to see, as like we said, 22 laps out here at Circuit of the Americas. It is a long track, 20 turns out here. So definitely Gael Valero showing his experience, able to fight his way through the pack right now up to 5th place. But Josh Perween now holding on very tightly to Pedro Dean right there, just trying to not get into too much dirty air as well. Like I said, that comes into play on cars like these that have such high downforce, is you want to keep a good gap between you and the driver in front of you, but you usually don't want to be right on their tail unless it is into a straight. And there we see a little bit of a lockup from Pedro Dean. So again, Amir, I think it's going to come down to how many little tiny mistakes like that are going to compound over the entire race.
Indeed, and the fact that we're almost reaching the halfway point, they'll probably be thinking about strategy too, Kevin. They might just be saying that, okay, we're coming to the end of this first hardest stint. Let's just go full pelt. Let's see what happens when the drivers around me are also starting to push as well. So for Dean, it's a knock-on effect. When he's pushing, everybody else around him is starting to push as well. Look at Josh Irwin, 0.2 of a second behind there, nearly ramming into the back of him, coming up to the quadruple, I think, right-hander that leads up to the final sector.
And just looking at the composure from both Josh Perween and Pedro Dean. Pedro Dean, of course, as it was mentioned earlier, Josh a little bit more in that traditional Formula One style scene. Oh, there, a little bit of a spin, not quite a spin, but just a little bit of breaking traction coming out of the final turn, going onto the home straight. But now, I think the big thing we've seen is how much that Josh Perween is really catching up going into turn number 1. He's really late on the brakes. Again, trying to just hold that tight. That's one of those hairpin corners that you have to nail if you want to really be able to carry a lot of speed through there. And Josh Perween does seem like he has a little bit more of an advantage over Pedro Dean going into turn number 1. So again, I think really just seeing the different sectors out here. Sector 1, Josh Perween, a few different sectors. Again, they keep going back and forth, Pedro Dean, Josh Perween, on where they are better in the tracks, where they are not. So definitely going to have to keep an eye on those two drivers. But now, once they start battling it out, that's going to leave room for Jackson Senjay to start really pulling away. So we'll have to see when he hits the pits. I think Senjay, it's going to be smart for him to really just wait either until those tires start slowing him down or until he just feels like he's starting to get a little bit of pressure. Hit the pits, go for that late pit stop. I mean, yeah, Amir, a lot of different strategies can be ran out here today.
Indeed, and the fact that you can see that the singularity does come into play afterwards when everybody has played it out, but we're not sure who's going to blink first, who's going to pull the trigger and come to the pits and do that undercut, or somebody who's going to stay out and just do the overcut. We're waiting and seeing now that we're coming into the next lap. That will be the halfway point in this heat. Only then we get to see who will be, how the strategy will be playing out and who will be doing the undercuts.
So, but for right now, I think a lot of it is just going to be, again, just try to maintain the damage that has been done so far. All these cars, exactly the same setup. So this race is going to come down to who runs the best strategy, who is able to keep it the cleanest throughout the race. Pedro Dean had that early race lead early on in the race, but now has been taken over by Jackson Senjay, still trying to just hold on to it. So again, with the introduction out here, we got the DRS in these cars, a hybrid system, a lot to take in if you're not used to that much complexity in the car. Like you said, we mentioned the differences in how they drive, the aerodynamics, the downforce, everything compared to the GR86 Cups earlier on. But now we have the introduction of just how many controls, because I made the mistake once of hopping in a race out there, not having all of the controls mapped to your steering wheel. So I feel like a lot of these guys out here are veteran drivers. They're not going to be making that mistakes, but hey, anything can happen. As now seeing people coming in from Twitch chat, we're out here. Heat number 1, lap number 11. Jackson SNJ first place, Pedro Dean in second, and Josh Perween in third.
Yep. Still at a deadlock between these three and still keeping each other within earshot by within 2 seconds from first to third. Meanwhile, we have League Racer who also streams, Zarel Jale, who is actually in the Twitch chat right now, talking to a couple of the Brazilians that we are seeing here. Really stark difference between those who are using F1 and iRacing. As meanwhile, pit stop time, halfway point, exactly as we said, and Resende with Dean are the first guys to come through. Perwin's continuing on for another lap.
So we'll see if that pays off for him, as now we can also see back there Gael Valero. So Valero being the leader of those that have pitted so far. We're going to have to keep an eye on him. Is he going to come out in front of Jackson Sanjay and Pedro Dean? It's going to be a close one, as here we go, folks. Josh Perween, like you said, opted to stay out now. Gael Valero up into second place. So definitely the early pit stop played huge for Gael Valero. Now up into second place. It's looking like Gael Valero will be into first place by the time that Josh Perween hits the pit stop. So definitely we have a battle going on our hands. Pedro Dean now back up into third place. Not sure what happened to Jackson Senjay, as he's still in the pits.
He's stuck in the pit lane. I don't know what happened to him. We're not sure if you can stall an engine, especially the fact that you can just engage the clutch and let it go. But still, it looks as though Resende has actually become stuck in the pit lane, and he's only now exiting it.
Yeah, again, like we said, hey, things can happen in real life. Things can happen like that in iRacing too. So we might have to check out exactly what happened to Jackson Senjay. He was in the lead, went into the pits, and unfortunately just didn't come out. Is now in last place. So Josh Perween still yet to pit Gael Valero. It is looking very good for him now that he knows he does not have that extra pressure from Jackson Senjay. Pedro Dean in third place, really going to have to turn on the jets if he wants to get back into that top spot. We got to see the back and forth going on in qualifying between Valero and Dean, so we both know that they have excellent pace. Gael Valero just a little bit faster out here today, and so far setting the fastest lap. So we'll have to see where this comes out, but now Josh Perween into pit lane.
Yeah, this is the most crucial pit stop of the entire race, and I think it's not enough. Valero might just be able to steal the win here. As you can see, yep, Perwin goes for the full service, pits with the tires completed. Now he's going to come back onto the track and well behind Valero and Dean. So that overcut strategy that I did mention earlier did not pay off. It's the undercut that works the treat.
Yeah, one of the things to keep in mind, though, we do see those red Pirellis on the car of Josh Perween, so he opted to take a new set of tires, definitely still keeping those soft, so we'll see how much he's able to really get back on there. However, now we're looking here at Pedro Dean also on those reds Pirelli, so the softer tires, once again, it's going to be extremely hard. We'll see if tire wear comes into play for Gael Valero. Like we mentioned, after lap 1, Valero went into the pits and came back out. So by the time we hit lap number 22, we are just over halfway this race. We're 13 laps into this thing. So once we hit, I'd say probably around lap 20, I think that's where Gael Valero might really start feeling the tire degradation, Amir.
And you can see that he's recharging his battery too, so the degradation, while it's not falling off the cliff completely, it is more gradual compared to the early days when we had Pirellis that literally self-destruct after just a few laps. But it looks as though, as you rightly pointed out though, Valero is starting to feel the effects of worn tires compared to Pedro Dean, who is just on a couple of laps old new sets as well to boot. This might just be an overtaking maneuver in the making, but Valero though, recharging his battery, waiting for the right time to just use it and extend his lead in front of Dean. But Dean though is looking real ominous here.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these guys, they can technically run these softer tire compounds throughout the majority of the race out here at Circuit of the Americas. So 22 laps in total. I mean, it's nothing out of the ordinary that we've seen. We got to see last weekend, again, how it went in real life. So iRacing trying to keep it as realistic as they can when it comes to their physics, really trying to make improvements all the time to how long the tires last, how they feel compared to real life, constantly making updates. So we'll see out here. Again, the biggest thing though, Gael Valero going into the pits on lap 1, Pedro Dean going into the pits on lap 11. I think right now, again, Pedro Dean may just be trying to be extremely patient, wait for that perfect opportunity, knowing he has 11 laps over Gael Valero on a set of tires. And we'll have to see if Valero pits for a second time to get new tires.
I don't think so. I don't think he'll be going for the second tires, because look at how he's defending. He's cutting across left and right. Let's see how his defense is going to be like. Is he going to be like Verstappen, or is he going to be a bit more fair? It looks as though he's going for the latter. He's being fair. But look, same situation, just like Max and Lando, where Valero was defending on the inside. Dean goes on the outside. Dean goes off overtake. But unlike what happened in real life, the stewards will not be asking him to give back the position unless, of course, the penalty system does come into play. But it looks as though, I think, that might have been just a clean enough maneuver for Dean to take. And what a move it was.
Yeah, and as well, to keep in mind, like we said, F1 rules a little bit different than how iRacing calculates penalties. So at the very most, I think Pedro Dean might have got a bit of a slowdown there. We see him giving the position back. So yeah, I think he might have got a slowdown for that one, Amir.
Oh wow, that is an amazing turn of events. It is exactly like what happened between Lando and Max, isn't it? But Valero makes a mistake this time, and Dean doesn't need second invitations. He takes it with both hands.
So just like that, the battle is heating up for first place. Pedro Dean, Gael Valero going back and forth for that P1. Of course, Valero on the more worn out tires. Pedro Dean now, you can just see the absolute focus, a little bit of shift, just the slightest shift in their demeanors. And now Pedro Dean really focusing, saying, all right, I'm back in first place. I'm going to have to push now if I want to keep this, as Josh Verween, although he's about 3, almost 4 seconds behind, still has the fresher tires than the other two drivers in front. So we know that as long as he keeps it clean, he can start setting hot lap after hot lap. But just like that, Pedro Dean coming back with a vengeance for that first place position.
Wow, what an absolutely brilliant drive. We thought that Valero had it in the bag there, because he literally just undercut completely the drivers in front of him. But the extra caveat is he's on way older tires compared to Dean. So let's see how his pace is going to be like against the Brazilian on much fresher tires. Almost 12 laps more compared to what Valero has right now. And judging by the sector times, it's fluctuating, but it looks as though Dean has the pace advantage.
Yeah, and seeing some of these guys out here that we got to see in the AMX ZERO. I've seen someone asking, where's Bruno De Carlo? I think this is the first time that we've seen in quite a while that he hasn't been going for both races in a day. So a couple of Delinte Esports guys out here, Bruno De Carlo not being one of them. But like we said, we still have 2 World Championship level in iRacing out here. Jackson Sanjay as well as his teammate Ralph Benitez. So a couple of Delinte Esports, not the entire team out here. But right now it's still Pedro Dean, Gael Valero, of course. Gael Valero known out here. We got to see him last weekend in the Petit Le Mans out there for Apex Racing Team. They did a great job as well. I think it's been a while since we haven't seen Team Redline up on that top spot of the podium for one of these endurance races. So definitely great to see when that happens. I know we've seen some of those guys out here in our own, whether it was last season for AMX 20, this season for AMX 15. But right now, still the sprint format going on. AMX 5 race 23, we have plenty all day long. Gael Valero, he's still not really looking too shabby in terms of points, as he has quite the lead over Pedro D for the overall season championship. But you know, he never wants to get second place. He wants to redeem himself, catch back up to Pedro Dean. But Pedro Dean just showing how much he has really dominated in some of these open wheelers so far this season, Amir.
Yeah, indeed, Kevin. And I think we finally know what's his element. Sometimes he has to extend himself when he overtakes in GT cars or tin tops, because you don't have the DRS and you can get away with a lot more contact. But with the open wheelers, especially we saw in Super Formula and now in the F1 cars, he really has been showing why he earned that high I rating in Formula cars to be where he is right now. Really though, we're not going to jinx it right now, as we are watching Pedro Mora going a little bit wide. He did pull off that double overtake maneuver at the start of the race. Now he's just trying to chase after Ralph Benitez in the other Delinte car. But yeah, he definitely looks like a nice guy, isn't he? Smiles while he races, just trying to enjoy his racing while keeping everything fair. But back to Pedro Dean, he's definitely found his niche, and he's well and truly showing it why he is now the man to beat in these cars.
And look at the timing screen. So we do still have Mateus Machado, who has been the only driver so far to not yet hit the pit. So we should be expecting that from him very soon. Sitting right now in 4th place. He's a little bit in no man's land, has about a 5-second gap behind him, as well as a 20-second gap between himself and Josh Perween. So I know he's trying to really just get as far ahead as he can. Again, right now, not quite fighting for a podium position, but still fighting for points. 4th place is not a bad place to be in, especially in AMX5. Like we mentioned out here, heat number 1 is double points than it is for qualifying and heat number 2. So if you don't have that great of a qualifying or that great of a heat number 2, I mean, heat number 1 is where it is all at. As you can see right there, 4th place, still be walking out of here with $12. So I think that's what he's trying to do, a bit of damage control, knowing he's going to lose a little bit of time once he does have to pit. And he knows he has Ralph Benitez, an excellent driver, right behind him. So I think, again, at what point do you go in? Usually once those tires start degrading, start slowing you down, you start making a little bit of mistakes, don't quite have the grip you want, that's usually the time of, hey, all right, trying to hit the pits, get a fresh set of tires and head back on there. But speaking of tires, out there it does look like he is on the yellow, so on the medium tires. Again, most of the people have been out here opting for the softs, hitting that pit stop, getting a second set of soft tires. So Mateus Machado, definitely an interesting strategy today.
Yeah, but it looks as though the soft tires might be the way to go, because you saw Dean, Valero, and Perwin all on soft tires since the very beginning and changing at their pit stops. Really, it helps them out completely, isn't it? They don't have to do it. There we go. That's the tire indicator that we've been egging to see, and we finally got to see it. Look, softs. Whereas Machado, Benitez, and Dantas are going alternate on this one. But as it turns out, it may not be the best way to do it. So pace-wise, you suffer, and track position-wise, you're going to lose a lot more time, so a lot more position. So certainly that has not worked out the way that Machado has wanted. Now he's on the softs. Meanwhile, Mora and Resende, a fast recovering Resende, he'll be bitterly disappointed that the pit stop did not work in his favor.
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, just going back to Jackson Senja was doing really well, battling for the lead, and then had a bit of pit stop issues. So, again, seeing some of the speculations out here that he had forgot to set it to get some extra tires on there. So, again, that's one of those things that once you hit the pit, maybe some of these guys a little bit of a splash and dash, not really fuel being much of an issue out here. But here we go, Pedro Mora now going over Ralph Benitez again. Ralph Benitez on those medium tire compound, Pedro Mora on the faster tires. So a great job up into 4th place right now. Still almost a 30-second gap, however, between 3rd and 4th place. So these guys now battling it out in the middle of the pack. Pedro Dean up towards the front is starting to get a little bit of a gap built between himself and Gael Valero. So again, strategy being the absolute biggest thing out here for AMX5 this season, especially in heat number 1. Once we head it back into heat number 2, there is not that mandatory pit stop, a little bit shorter of a sprint race, so those guys will be laying everything out on the line. Again, Amir, it should be interesting to see who chooses the softs for that one versus who's going to choose the mediums.
I think based on what we've seen here, everybody's going to go into the softs, because it looks as though the soft tires have the capability to survive all the way up to the halfway point of a certain distance. And in this case, in this 22-lap race, they managed to make it past lap 11, and it has paid dividends big time for those guys who've gone for, shall we say, the vanilla strategy. Just pit at the halfway point and it will all work out. And for Dean, it's working out in spades. And excuse me if I use the Gava Bueno expression after this, if Dean hangs on for the win, a victory to savor for Pedro Dean.
And we'll have to keep an eye out. So, like we said, again, both of these guys, Pedro Dean and Gael Valero, the way that things are going, they're going to have to once again fight their way all the way from the back of the pack. Both of them up 6 positions from where they started this race. So they're both equally the biggest movers of the day. Like we said, Gael Valero did a little bit better in qualifying. Just, I mean, slightly less than 2/10 of a second, less than 1/10 of a second, I believe 1800ths of a second. I'll have to look back at that, but they're so close back and forth the entire qualifying session, and out here too. Not quite as long as a normal Formula One race, a little bit more like a Formula One sprint race is what we're seeing today. And speaking of that, I mean, we did get to see that last weekend as well. F1 out at COTA had their sprint followed by a longer race, but there looks like a bit of off-track battle going on. Ralph Benitez, we might have to catch a replay. We caught just the very bare end of that to see what happened.
Yeah, it might have been just a nervy moment for Benitez, but That's something that Resendi doesn't mind because he's taking 5th place, and the big slide as well coming out of the turn 20. He is pushing. You can tell he is quite incensed that such a unforeseen error has cost him an opportunity to battle for the win. He was looking real hard here to be battling with Dean and Valero, but alas, we were unfortunately robbed of that one. And certainly for him, he was robbed of a chance to go for glory, and now he is just made to ponder what might have been. And here's a replay of that particular incident that you were talking about earlier, Kevin.
Yeah, so here we go right now on board, and it just looks like getting that front left tire locking up, so that can slow you down so much. And then we see just leaving the door wide open, and there was a bit of contact between the two drivers, so it looks like Jackson essentially not able to slow it down just enough, causing a little bit of contact there. Again, that's how fast things can change out here in these F1 cars. You just have to be super precise the entire time. But still, Jackson Senjay, although there's a little bit of contact, looking like it's not slowing him down too much. I know that could have been very easy for him to get damage to that front wing.
Yeah, but again, Benitez was probably thinking that maybe he knows that Resendi was going to dive on the inside anyway, so gave him plenty of space. Yes, it was his mistake, but he didn't want to make it double by blocking Resendi, so he chose the right option and just give him a bit of space and just let them carry on their merry ways.
And Eric C going through Sector 1, Gael Valero, again, still pretty neck and neck, only 0.003 of a second faster than Pedro Dean. So both of these guys, although Valero is on older tire compounds, well, you can see a little bit more there through Sector 2. So about 0.4 of a second slower. And again, Valero's not really one to make many mistakes out here, no matter the car that you put him in. So, he's pushing it as hard as he can. Pedro Dean is pushing it as well. I think, I'm not sure if Gael Valero, he had a bit of an incident there when we seen on turn number 1, lap 1, Gael Valero getting caught up. So he may have had a bit of repairs immediately off the bat that he just said, I have to hit the pits or else I'm going to be losing so much time rather than just going out there on worn tires. So although I'm sure Gael Valero would have liked to pit near the halfway mark, hey, that's what happens out here in racing, but he's still doing a great job fighting. Currently looking like he is going to be ending up on that podium.
Yep, but he misses out on a win that he was so desperately craved. But Pedro Dean, though, what a drive. And we knew that he was going to be something special in the open wheelers because he did prove in the Super Formula race that he was quick as, big hit there from Mora, from Resendi. Resendi loses his front wing, but utilizes the quick repair to get his wing back on. This is going to be a battle between the two Brazilians. So, Pedro Mora, the nice guy that has been decreed in the chat, up against one of the more old guards of the sim racing community here for iRacing, but he's probably much younger than he really looks. Jackson Resendi, this is going to be fireworks towards the end of this first heat.
Yeah, and I see right there, Pedro Mora, just the back end, getting a little bit, and he loses it going into the pits. There we have right behind him. So we have the two Brazilians almost getting caught up in an even worse accident. So both going into the pit lane there. Jackson Sanjay trying to avoid it, having just coming right behind. So I'm wondering how many of these guys are on on the comms with each other. How many of them have each other in the radios? But nonetheless, we see there Evandro Dantas hitting the pit lane as well. So white flag is out. Pedro Dean leading by a significant 4 seconds over Gael Valero. Josh Perween in third place. I think, Amir, this is pretty much where we may have this as long as no one makes a mistake from here on out.
Oh, definitely. And this is where we're going to go into that spiel that I was talking about earlier. He's coming through turn 16 and now on to 17 and 18, the quadruple right-hander, but it turns out to be just 2 corners into 19. I think he's pretty much safe right now. On to the final corner then. Pedro Dean with a heroic first heat here. Comes across the final corner. Vencedor em Estados Unidos for Pedro Dean do Brasil.
And just the sigh of relief once he finishes that race. He was expecting it to be a battle all the way down against Gael Valero right there in his rear view mirror. There was some great back and forth action going on between the two of them. But now we'll have to see what they're able to do for second place as we get that quick replay of what could have turned into a much worse accident entering the pits for a few of those Brazilian drivers. But nonetheless, big congratulations to everyone up there on the podium. Pedro Dean in first, We got Gael Valero coming in second and Josh Perween in third. So I think knowing what happened at the beginning of lap 1, I think these drivers are going to be a little bit more cautious going into turn number 1 out here. I know there's a few people trying to make the dive, really lunging in to gain position, but unfortunately these cars are hard to handle on such tight turns. Now we have Ralph Benitez coming across the line, Mateus Machado coming in 5th place, as well as we have Pedro Moro back there still. Jackson Sanjay, looks like Evandro Dantas still in the pits. I'm not sure if he's going to come back out or just say, well, that is my race for heat number 1. Time to focus down for heat number 2. 25 minutes, no mandatory pit stops. Amir, it's going to be a good one.
Well, definitely it's going to be just a straight fight towards the end. But what we saw in that first heat, where the tires can actually last the half distance, but you still have the pit, will come into effect here. It's not meant in the second heat, but nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see if they are going to push it. But Pedro Dean, though, a well-deserved winner in front of Gael Valero and Josh Bowen completing your podium. Benitez, Machado, Mora, Resende, and Dantas complete the rest of the Brazilian armada that are in this top 10. But take nothing away from Dean, a well-deserved winner.
Absolutely. So your BenQ session winner, Pedro Dean, coming out again, making the win count out in heat number 1. Second time he's done that in an open wheeler like this. In second place, Gael Valero, who unfortunately had to pit very early on. That ruined his strategy for the rest of the race, but still doing a great job in P2. And we have Josh Perween coming across into P3 as these guys line up now for the heat number 2. Again, reverse grid. I can hear those engines roaring as we are moments away. The lights are green light going now. We have a great start right there from, looks like P3. We got Pedro Mora. Amazing, cutting it through all the way up into turn 1 now. Has the inside line from turn 1 right behind him, scooting in as well. Jackson Sanjay. So Evandro Dantas losing 2 positions. Pedro Mora from 3rd to 1st. And oh, just like that, we have our first off-track incident. So a bit of just, so much chaos happening in lap number 1 out here today. But luckily, those drivers able to recover and get back onto the track.
But crucially, though, the man who finished second in that first heat, Gael Valero, is already out of it. So Perwin is the one involved in that one. I'm not sure what happened to Josh there. I didn't see his car in the midst of that. But up in front, though, Pedro Mora with a lightning start. He is up in front. And let's see if the nice man will become the ice man up in front.
So with that, a turn of events, things already getting shaken up. So like I said, I expected them to be a little bit more cautious out here going into heat number 2. And I guess, no, everyone came out here just guns blazing, getting out there, trying to really get any bit of position that they can from the very beginning. So we'll have to see is now Pedro Mora sitting up in first place, almost 2-second gap between him and second place of Evandro Dantas. Evandro Dantas trying to battle off Pedro Dean, but Pedro Dean now going for the inside line. Can he have it right now? He does have it, so able to really just get that, almost a little bit of a lockup from these guys, but Pedro Dean now looking to get that second win.
Yeah, Dean wants to make it 2 for 2 here. He will definitely love it to do that. But he still has a bit of work to do here to get up to the back of Pedro Mora. As now Dantas and Benitez go at it hammer and tongs with a third player coming to that in form of Mateus Machado. But here's what happened to start. Perwin on the outside, and it looks as though Valero was on the middle of that, trying to squeeze. Oh! Tell you what, it was just a racing incident, isn't it? Because both of them were trying to avoid each other. They couldn't see each other coming. Perwin gets knocked off completely, while Valero's race is done there and there. Too much damage to his front wing.
And just like that, that reminds me of last weekend whenever we got to see Lewis Hamilton going off the track, and that was his race for the day. Unfortunately, we have a veteran out here, Gael Valero, getting involved in an incident, having a bit of a sandwich, and just like that, I mean, you're a bit of a passenger. There's not much you can do whenever you get sandwiched like that. So turn number 1, dangerous place to be, going 3 wide out here in the Formula 1 cars. But right now, still lap number 2, Pedro Mora leading it. We got a bit of a battle now ensuing. Evandro Dantas still trying to defend off Mateus Machado there for 4th place.
Yeah, but Machado looks as though under a lot... close enough with Resende, but he's pressuring Dantas for that position and nearly gets through. But now he himself will be under pressure from Resende right behind. These 3 Brazilians up in front. In fact, it's a Brazilian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 tuplets up in front.
And just like that, yep, I see someone out there saying just crazy how this track seems to take out the Mercedes. I mean, there's been great luck for Mercedes out here again. Like we said in the form of Lewis Hamilton taking home so many wins, as well as a bit of tragedy that we got to see from last weekend. But nonetheless, it's still some great races going on right now in the middle of the pack. Well, I mean, one thing for sure, it's looking very good for Brazil out here. Josh Perween now 35 seconds down after that lap 1 incident. So I mean, it's just so hard out here. Again, a lot of it comes down to skill, but a lot of it also comes down to luck. If someone else ends up into the side of you, sometimes there's not too much you can do about it. But right now, still lap 3 of 15. These guys battling now in the middle of the pack. Jackson essentially just trying to get the move done, and he does right now. Looking to get the overtake on the outside, able to make it stick over Evandro Dantas. So now Dantas having to worry about Machado right behind him, and a bit of a lockup from Jackson essentially. So Jackson able to gain a place, but then locks up. Now getting back on track, leaving plenty of time for Josh Perween to start trying to close the gap. However, still over 30 seconds behind. Not sure that's going to happen. Evandro Dantas now up to 5th place.
Wow, wait. A couple of different things happening in one go. Resende had the position, but then smacked the curb that pushed him into a spin right in front of Dantas. Dantas had nowhere to go. It's almost like a similar situation between Pedro Mora and Jackson Resende towards the end of that first heat, where Mora blocked the pit lane. Resende had nowhere to go. This time, it was Resende who spun, and it was Dantas that had nowhere to go. So, same situation, different part of the track, but ultimately between the same nationalities.
And here we see, so Evandro Dantas still down 4 positions from where he was on the grid, but like we said, still 5th place is not a bad place to be out here when you only got 8 drivers on the field. Still going to be getting some money headed his way up on the points for the overall championship, but the big one is going to be Gael Valero. So luckily Valero has a huge lead in the overall point championship as we go back to the replay of what happened earlier on. So there we see Jackson Sanjay, Evandro Dantas side by side. Jackson able to lead up in front now going into this left. No! Yeah, it just looks like he just lost the grip, didn't quite have all the grip, and getting flown over the curb. Evandro Dantas doing a great job of avoiding that incident. Unfortunately, having to go off the track, and I know he'd rather go off the track than into the side of another car, taking himself out. So, unfortunate for Jackson Sanjay, but he is still in this race, trying to get up as many points as he can on the board.
Wow, wait. Can you imagine that slight bit of paint on the side of the road is enough to spin around a car that is actually having 1,000 horsepower? That shows the amount of torque that these things put through from the V6 hybrid engines. But again, crucially, loss of control can happen in the blink of an eye. And for Jackson, he had 1 position gain, 2 positions lost in one fell swoop.
And of course out here, Circuit of the Americas, definitely one of the harder tracks in the US to really get a hold on. Again, running so many different series out here, from Formula One, of course, being the home of the United States Grand Prix, all the way to NASCAR. This year we got to see the WEC come into Austin for the Lone Star Le Mans, another great race out there as well. I've just seen so many different cars out on this track, so that's definitely on my bucket list living in the United States. Be able to catch a few races, as now looks like we're heading out to another full screen replay. Get to see what is going on back here. So looking like we had right there the number 5, just setting himself into a half spin out on track. So again, we got to see that in both real life from some of the best drivers in the world, just how hard this track, and just trying to get back on, goes into the wall, and that might have been the race for Josh Perween.
Yeah, he tried to recover there from a half spin, but just got on the throttle soon enough. Thought he had enough tire to go through. Oh no, there's a crash at the back. There's that Ralph Benitez. That was a heavy impact, and it is Benitez. He's out of it.
Yeah, I mean, just as we're getting more and more replays, we might just have to see, like I said, just the track being just so hard to conquer out here. That shows how much focus you have to have in these high horsepower vehicles. Now, Pedro Dean going back for the lead over Pedro Mora. Will he have it? He has the inside line, definitely, but he locks up. Now it's side by side, Pedro Dean, Pedro Mora, a battle of the Pedros. Who's going to come out of this one? We know Dean has the pace over Mora. Mora not trying to fight too hard, but Pedro Dean pushing it a little bit much now, still able to hold on to that first place position. However, Mora still holding on to his rear bumper. You know, both of these drivers trying to want to get that win, but Dean now falling back. Pedro Mora over Pedro Dean. It's I keep getting that back with both these. It's hard when they're both in the exact same looking car too, but nonetheless, Dean just showing his skill out here in the single seaters, looking to get that lead even more. We're only 5 laps into this thing, folks, and it has just been so much action going on the entire time.
Wow, and between the Pedro battle of the two Pedros is Dean who comes on top of Mora, but for how long? Because Mora looks like he's gonna fight back here for all he's worth. That was a good piece of driving we've seen before a couple of times in previous seasons, and indeed a couple of times even in this season, that Dean can be a little bit forceful in his overtakes, but it looks as though he's learned a lot from that sense and made an absolutely clean maneuver to take the lead of this race. Here's a replay of what happened there. Oh no, in fact, it's what happened to Benitez. Looks like he just touched the curb, swapped ends, and smacks into the barrier. So that's a third major casualty of this circuit, and that same corner that caught out Resende before has caught out yet another Brazilian, but for Benitez, well, the damage was well and truly terminal.
So just like that, yeah, I've seen someone out here saying there's so many replays going on today. Definitely for there only being 8 drivers ending up on the starting grid, there is quite a bit of replays out here in heat number 2. Heat number 1, like we said, we had that incident there on turn number 1 out in the first lap, and that was really probably the biggest incident that we had of the race. But out here, I mean, just these drivers not sure if it's a little bit of fatigue. These cars are not easy cars to drive, especially when you're trying to push it to the absolute limit. But now Pedro Dean, it was a battle back and forth between the two Pedros, but now about a 3-second gap from our leader up in first place as we are entering lap number 8. So we'll have to see exactly where these guys go. Now I think we're going to another full screen replay of what happened. Which incident this one? So we have Evandro Dantas now on screen again, just getting a little bit of that curbing, sending it into a half spin, looking like trying to get it back into that full 360, get back on track and try to not lose any pace. And he does, just like that, come to a bit of a stop and get back on the track.
360 no scope there from Dantas. Points for style, but unfortunately it's not going to gain him in terms of position or time to Resende. Regardless though, if he keeps it where he's going right now, he's at least going to finish in the top 5. Benitez looks as though has made a return to the track. There's like quick repairs. He managed to use up at least one of those to get back on the track, but that was a monumental accident. The front of the car was wiped out in that one. He just tried to control the car, but it snapped on him because the wheels immediately grip up and send him helplessly into the barriers. But luckily though, since this is not real life, he can still get back into the race.
So unfortunately, right now we are halfway through this race, and that is 2 drivers out of the race. So both Josh Perween, Gael Valero, looking like their race is pretty much done. Ralph Benitez able to get back out on the track. He's a lap down at this point, but he's just looking to try and still get points on the board, try to finish. Like we said, it's unfortunate for some of these guys. Just, Circuit of the Americas, it's a bit one of those that, like we see out at Mount Panorama, especially Josh Perween. I know he might be a little bit more comfortable out in Bathurst than out here at Circuit of the Americas, but nonetheless, you have to respect the track at both places, or else you can just end up into the wall so quick. But right now, still, Pedro Dean now not really feeling any pressure that he was feeling earlier. So already over 5-second gap between first and second place, as well as a 6-second gap between second and third. So the drivers have now started spreading out a bit with all the incidents going on. So really, Pedro Dean just needs to lock it in, focus on what's ahead of him, run his race, and he's going to be walking home with another first place out here in heat number 2.
Yep, certainly a double. And he was also, I think, the guy who set the fastest lap in the first heat as well. So, I didn't get the provisional on that one, but I think, has it to guess that he did take the fastest lap as well. So, really, he is on a roll here today. And now we're going to get yet another replay. So many replays today. And this time, finally, is that battle between the two Pedros.
Oh, you just see right there, just a little bit of early braking from the car up in front. It looks like we are on board with Pedro Muro, the black and green F1 car. So, again, not exactly sure what happened there, if he was just too late on the brakes and just trying to avoid an incident, but that's kind of what really set the pace there. Now able to let Pedro Dean get almost 7 seconds up ahead of Pedro Muro. So, which is just a few laps, we're really having to see exactly how these two drivers are, kind of the mental part of racing out here. You have to be able to be fast, but you have to also be able to bounce back from little incidents like that. However, we still see Pedro Muro. I mean, it almost always seems like we get him smiling out there. So he's out here trying to push it, trying to have fun, but mostly it is more leaning towards the fun part of it. So great to see these guys out here. Pedro Muro, he's happy with being on the podium, although he'd love to have that first place. I know, hey, second place isn't all that bad either. We'll have to see, as Matheus Machado about 5 seconds behind him as well. So we'll see if this is going to be our running order for the podium. Pedro Dean in first, Pedro Muro in second, and Matheus Machado in third.
Kind of funny how that, because he's wearing a red shirt right now, he looks a bit like, I'm going for a football and / soccer reference, he looks a bit like Bruno Fernandes from Manchester United. So smiling more than what Fernandes is going through right now. Regardless though, Mora, he'll be thoroughly delighted with his second place, and deservedly so, because he's driven a very calculated and clean race, and he's smiling still all the way, even though he's not pulling a double maneuver that we saw in that first heat, where that was a masterful drive. He had the DRS, the lungs on the inside made it work. This time, however, is a bit more serene.
Yeah, and I'm curious with some of these guys out here, like we said, a lot of them opting for the soft tires. It would be interesting to see if anyone went on the mediums, just how that would play out. Again, out here, it's only 15 laps, so the softs do seem, for how little of laps that they're really putting around here, to be the obvious choice. But with the track temp right now still holding around 38 degrees, like we always say, out of Circuit of the Americas, Austin, Texas, one of the hottest racetracks on the Formula One calendar. Not the hottest racetrack, but hey, it is still up there. Especially, it helps that they do run it so late in the year. A little bit cooler out there, but I've been in Austin, Texas all the way to September, and it was still 100 degrees Fahrenheit out there. So in the mid to high 30s. It's no joke, but definitely these guys don't have to worry about it too much, out as it seems that they have finally got back into the groove of things. Still, Pedro Dean just being absolutely dominant out here. We thought there was going to be a battle again between Pedro Dean and Gael Valero the entire time. It showed the battle to happen out in heat number 1, but out here in heat number 2, Gael Valero unfortunately having to retire from the heat.
Yep, and because of both Perwin and Valero going out in this heat, it is an amazing sight to see, isn't it? Brazilian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So their Independence Day came really early. In fact, Independence Day for them is just a month ago on September 7th. But regardless of that, this is probably the best way to celebrate it, by really stamping their authority on the entire field, with the cherry on top, Dean making it a double.
And there we got to see as well. So Matheus Machado there in third place. Jackson Assange now not too far behind him. So we'll see. Jackson Assange may have the pace to start catching up. I'm looking at the last lap. So he is almost a second faster from the last lap as Matheus Machado. So there, with about just over 5 laps left in this thing, Jackson Assange does have a good chance of catching up and getting a podium out there for Delinte.
Well, let's see if that will be the case though, because Machado looks as though, based on the previous laps that he did, is matching Resende by only 0.6. But yes, he is slightly slower compared to Resende. It'll be interesting to see in the next 5 laps or so how this particular battle will transpire.
So here we go now, folks. Lap number 11 going on, and another full screen replay coming up. Who is it going to be this time? It looks like we are on board. Is this the battle going on early on? It looks like this may be a Josh Perwin's car. And there we see the sandwich between him and Gael Valero. So,
yep, him and Benitez. There's Benitez on the outside of that. He managed to get away with that first time before the crash that happened later on. But Perwin and Valero, they just pincered each other because they thought that it was clear. Maybe the spotters in their cars were not doing the job to tell them that, okay, it's clear. But unfortunately, both of them, the way that they collided was enough to really set them back in this heat. And as a result, you can see that 7 and 8, the two main protagonists that we usually would bank on to bring in the results, have unfortunately ended up with a retirement each.
And another big thing to keep in mind from these cars, anyone that has raced them in iRacing knows that whenever you have tight hairpins like that, I mean, you're almost driving blind going up to turn number 1 out here at COTA, up the hill into a left-hander. In these cars, definitely not the best to really see where you're going. So, I mean, again, racing incident most likely, but here you get to see a replay going on. Again, is this another incident of just losing grip? It is. So, unfortunately, yet another driver just not having the grip that they quite need out here. And I think that's the biggest thing is, like we said, everyone out here on the same exact setup, same exact car. So some of these guys that maybe drive this car a little bit different where they have control over their setups, no. All right, they have to make a lot of changes out for Circuit of the Americas. But again, definitely the endurance part of this. It's not an endurance race, but mentally, just what these guys have to do is now, Mateus Machado trying to defend off Jackson SNJ.
Yep, now the battle is well and truly on. Let's see how the lap times were that time around again. Machado just cannot match Resende. In fact, Machado was almost, in fact, over 1.2 seconds slower compared to Resende. So Resende then, he's trying to make a run for the podium and really avenge for the disappointment that happened in that first heat where the pit stop, he looked good to battle for the win, unfortunately hampered him. Now, he's at least on for a podium.
So now we got to see, again, like you said, when is Jackson going to make the move? It looks like he's going to try to go for right here. Getting really close, and he goes to the outside. So we'll see as the DRS enabled there. Jackson SNJ just having that DRS, really just able to get him on the straight now. Oh, a little bit of a lockup there from Machado. So definitely leaving Jackson SNJ to get up onto the podium. And now Jackson needs to keep it clean if he wants to keep this. Oh, just over 3 laps left out here in heat number 2. Mateus Machado going to have to put out all the tricks in the book if he wants to get back on top of the podium.
Yeah, but that move on the outside that Sanjay did, he did go off track. Will he be incurring the same type of penalty that we saw with Pedro Dean and Pedro Mora, where Dean had to give back the position to Mora because he actually went off the track? So we'll wait and see whether that be the case, but I don't think it might be, because I think Resende might just be able to clear that.
And by this point in heat number 1, a lot of the drivers were already taking their pit stops. So again, it being a little bit hotter track out here, these guys are all on the soft tires, definitely feeling that tire degradation. So knowing that, hey, I want to push it as hard as I can, but then that comes into play of how many spin outs we've gotten to see through some of these high speed sections going into those low speed braking zones. But right now, Jackson SNJ already able to get nearly a 2-second gap over Mateus Machado. Right now, holding down about 1.6, 1.7 seconds. So we got to go out there. And again, Pedro Dean, I mean, he has, I've said this over and over, just shown time and time again what he can do. And like you mentioned earlier on today, Amir, Pedro Dean really showing that he has the pace out here anytime it comes to a Formula style car.
Yep, and again, we're going to get a full screen replay of that before we get into what we are going to wax lyrical about Dean. Here's that move from Resende on Machado. It looks as though the DRS did come into his favor, but he couldn't get it stopped properly in time. He tried to go for the threshold braking, but locks it up. And someone in the comments there just now did say that I was alluding to August Mail to the Norris penalty, but it looks as though he might have gotten away with that one. And again, that outside line can be proven to be tricky in real life and in sim racing. If you go offline, you might incur the wrath of the stewards in game or in real life, but it looks as though, unlike what happened to Dean in that first heat where he was battling against Valero to take the lead, he didn't have to peel off to the side and wait for the penalty to burn off. He just took the position, according to the game sim platform, legitimately. So really, Resende got away with that one and literally has scampered away from Machado for third.
So then we're going to see now, still back to your leader. We're on lap number 14, the penultimate lap out here in heat number 2. Pedro Dean already over 11 seconds over Pedro Mura. The battle of the Pedros ensued early on in this race, but it was Dean that ended up going back out there. Your heat number 1 winner, of course, getting P2 out in qualifying as well. So it has been all day long, no doubt. Pedro Dean is going to come out with the overall win of the day. I know he would have loved to make it 3 in a row. He had top qualifying for quite a while until Gael Valero took that from him, as well as Josh Verween getting in the mix of things earlier on in the day. So great race out here from Pedro Dean. like I said, if we ever go to a full season of where it's just open wheelers, this is going to be one of the men to look out for. Definitely would have a great opportunity at coming home with a championship. But like I said, plenty to come for future seasons, as well as a couple revisions going on this season. So for some of the drivers out there watching, definitely we've heard your voices. We've heard a lot of stuff. And I think, Amir, for season 7, that may be one of the best seasons we've got so far. But right now, the white flag is coming out. Pedro Dean leading the majority of this race, showing how dominant he is when you give him a lot of horsepower, a lot of downforce in a single seater. He says, I'm going to come out here, put it down for myself, for my team, for my country, and come out victorious. And that's what he's done all day long.
Indeed, and he has done it in spades. Oh, Pedro, the other Pedro Mora, locks it up coming through turn number 1, and that might leave him a bit vulnerable here in the closing stages of this race to Jackson Resende. Resende then only just under 2 seconds behind, and he could keep chipping away at that advantage and get it under a second. He will have DRS that might just make Pedro, the other Pedro, sweat a bit more here in this phenomenal race up in front.
So there we go, as again, some of the drivers towards the middle of the pack now. I mean, really, it was a battle of attrition out here. We see Evandro Dantas coming out of the pits now, the white flag. Let's see if he's going to try and set the fastest. Well, I mean, he's coming out of the pits, so he's not going to set the fastest laps as the white flag is already out. But still, looking to just get back out there, see what he can do. Again, great racing from all of these guys from turn number 1 all the way through turn number 20. But right now, here is the man of the hour. We are looking back at Pedro Dean almost at the end of the final lap. Lap 15 of 15 out around Circuit of the Americas. There was a bit of drama going on, a bit of heartbreak for some of these guys, but the man of the hour, Pedro Dean, showing it, putting it down out here in the beautiful black and green livery as a bit of a celebratory 360 across the line now, coming into a half spin, but the sigh of relief as he knows he was able to get a back-to-back win out at Circuit of the Americas. Pedro Dean coming across the line in second place, and Jackson Senje able to battle his way up into third place and get on the podium.
The two Pedros first and second, with Jackson Resende in third. Machado across the line in fourth. We're waiting for Dantas and Benitez to complete the field of runners here. But once again, we have to point that out. A quick sextuplet up in front of Brazilians. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it before. And, well, what a way to end the day, isn't it? A spectacular run from Dean, with Brazilians making it their own up in the top 6.
So a great day overall. Like we said, started off with AMX ZERO as we do every Saturday, followed by AMX 5, and this season there's been so much chaos going on, so much drama, everything, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears left out on the track every single weekend. We still have a few weeks left out here in this season. Like we said, folks, make sure to come back tomorrow where we're back out here for AMX 10, but for today's race, it is all Pedro Dean out here at Circuit of the Americas, as we have the results coming in from heat number 2. Like we said, your BenQ session winner, Pedro Dean, just feeling so relaxed, so relieved. In second place, we got Pedro Mora. Third place, Jackson Senje. Fourth place, we got Mateus Machado. In fifth, we have Evandro Dantas. Sixth place, Ralph Benitez. Seventh, Josh Perween and Guy Alvalero in eighth. Unfortunately, the final two drivers having to retire out here in heat number 2, but Ralph Benitez able to set the fastest lap out there in heat number 2.
Yep. Despite one Brazilian making waves up in front, the other one managed to steal a bit of his thunder by taking that fastest lap. Regardless though, Pedro Dean, if we had driver today here, definitely has taken the vote by a landslide. It was definitely his type of car, his type of race that he wanted to win, and he fulfilled that promise big time.
So like we got to see, I mean, we have a few more races out here, a few weeks left out for AMX 5. Again, Guy Alvalero currently leading the points championship, but we'll have to see where things go as Pedro Dean is in second place. After today's race, that's going to help out Pedro Dean immensely. But once again, we have a few different car classes that I'm sure it's going to be the battle going on back and forth. Jackson Senji again in there. Great to see Josh Perween back out here as well today. I know there's going to be quite a few highlights from all the races today that end up making it on the social medias, Amir.
Yeah, definitely. Probably a few highlights is that big collision between Valero and Josh Bowen that took out the two main main race contenders and opened the door up for all the Brazilians to just take it by the hand, by both horns. But which one was going to win? Well, it was never in doubt, wasn't it? If one guy dominated that first heat, it was definitely going to be the same guy.
Absolutely, and like I said, there's no doubt of Pedro Dean showing the dominance, getting P2 in qualifying, winning heat number 1 and winning heat number 2. No doubt in anyone's mind that he's going to be our overall winner of today. Again, Valero doing so good until just having a few incidents. Like we said, incident early on in lap number 1 out in heat number 1 where he got taken out, had to pit early, get a little bit of the damage repaired possibly, get back out there and battled all the way until his tires just started running out, came away still on the podium, and then like we seen in heat number 2, unfortunately getting taken out of the race early on. So it should be interesting to see when these guys, what they come back to next weekend for next week's races. Again, quick preview of tomorrow as well. Back our TCR doubleheader, where this time, again, ensuing it back on, we'll have to see. I know one of the tracks should be interesting where we get to see Tsukuba, one of my favorite Japanese tracks, as well as we're going to be heading over to Motegi. But right now, again, like I said, we got our results coming in now. It is going to be Pedro Dean, the top winner of the day. Second place, we got Gael Valero, and in third, Jackson Sanjay. Going down the list, we got Pedro Mora in fourth, tying it with Ralph Benitez. Sixth place, Josh Berween. Seventh, Mateus Machado, and eighth, Evandro Dantas. So, I mean, again, for all of you guys that still want to get involved in some of these races, there's still plenty of time. You can join at any point in the season. Get out there, amxrace.com. We'd love to have you in there. Try to shake up things, go head-to-head, toe-to-toe with some of the best sim racers in the world. Well, I think, Amir, with that, I believe we are going to be heading out for the day. Glad to have you back here as well. Some of these drivers we haven't seen in a while. But for everyone signing out from AMX, I'm Kevin alongside Amir. We'll see you all next time.